Chapter 472. Hearing Chun Daoxuan's request for help, Lin Yi hesitated for a moment, but he still agreed. "Senior, is there anything I can do?" Lin Yi said gently, "If it's within my power, I'll definitely do it. I don't ask for much. I just hope that when your cultivation is high enough, you can go to the ruins and try your luck." Chun Daoxian sighed. "If you can get the first volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao, it'll be very beneficial to you. When the time comes, you just need to let me take a look at the first volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao and let me break the shackles of the remnant volume. Otherwise, with my current body condition, I'll only die if I continue to cultivate." Hearing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but hesitate. The 3,000 Heavenly Tao was his cultivation technique. He was a little reluctant to let Chun Daoxian see it. However, if he didn't agree, Chun Daoxian might not tell him about the ruins. "Of course, I'll also give you benefits. If there's anything you want, you can tell me." Sensing Lin Yi's hesitation, Chun Daoxian continued to increase his bargaining chip. "If you need anything in the sacred depository, I can recommend it to you. Before you break through to the Great Sage Realm, I can also teach you how to cultivate divine will. Although the first volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao can only be cultivated to the Sage Realm, I can teach you more ways to use it." "How do you know that the 3,000 Heavenly Tao can only be cultivated to the Sage Realm?" Lin Yi frowned and stared at Chun Daoxian in confusion. "Ha!" Chun Daoxian laughed bitterly. "Because of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao, I've become like this. I'm blind, neither human nor ghost. Naturally, I'll study it. The reason why I came to the sacred depository is to find out about the 3,000 Heavenly Tao." Lin Yi fell silent again, hesitating whether he should agree or not. If he agreed, there would be many benefits. After all, there was an elder who had surpassed the realm of the great sage protecting him. Even if the elder did not teach him the use of spiritual will, it would still be a good deal. However, even if he agreed, Lin Yi felt that Chun Daoxian had not completely revealed his intentions. In fact, Lin Yi's guess was right. If Chun Daoxian wanted to change his body's condition, he only needed to destroy the 3,000 Heavenly Tao's cultivation technique and cultivate again. But in that case, he would be in a weakened state for decades. However, he was a disciple of Sibu Gakuin. He could hide in Sibu Gakuin until he recovered to his peak. However, after Chun Daoxian understood the 3,000 Heavenly Tao, he understood its strength. Therefore, Chun Daoxian was unwilling to give up the 3,000 Heavenly Tao. He wanted to complete his own 3,000 Heavenly Tao so that he could reach a higher level. Therefore, Chun Daoxian asked Theta Scarbii and some of his friends to help him find people who had achieved the Divine Will Sage. Over the past few hundred years, they had also recruited many new students who had achieved the Divine Will Sage. However, none of them had cultivated the 3,000 Heavenly Tao and could not help Chun Daoxian. Another decade passed in the chaos. Just as Chun Daoxian was about to give up, Lin Yi appeared. After pondering for a moment, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Senior, back then, so many of you great sage powerhouses were unable to open the ruins and obtain the first volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao. How can I open it?" "Of course you can." Chun Daoxian suddenly grinned and said, "We were unable to open the ruins back then because the last stage of the ruins requires someone who has comprehended the first volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao to open it. As long as you break through to the Great Sage Realm, you can definitely open the ruins." Lin Yi raised his head and stared at Chun Daoxian. He wanted to see what Chun Daoxian was thinking. However, Chun Daoxuan's expression did not change. Lin Yi could not read any information. After a long time, Chun Daoxian laughed bitterly and said, "Looks like you're not willing to help me. Senior, what if I don't help you?" Lin Yi asked tentatively. "That's fine," Chun Daoxian said indifferently. "I've been blind for hundreds of years. I'm already indifferent to these things. At most, I'll just end my life like this." Hearing this, Lin Yi suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. For some reason, Lin Yi could not bear to hear Chun Daoxuan's indifferent words. "Since that's the case, I'll agree to your request." Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi agreed directly. It's fine if you don't agree. When Chun Daoxian heard Lin Yi's words, he thought that he was going to refuse and said helplessly, "Wait." However, just as he finished speaking, Chun Daoxian realized that something was wrong. He suddenly raised his head and his voice became agitated. "Little fellow, you just said you agreed?" "That's right." Lin Yi smiled and said, "Coincidentally, I've cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Tao." "Senior, you became like this because of the 3,000 heavenly Tao. When I have the ability, I'll go to the ruins myself. I promise you, Senior. As long as I get the 3,000 heavenly Tao, I'll let you see it." "Good, good, good," Chun Daoxian said urgently. "The ruins are in another continent. As for the specific location, I'll tell you when you reach the Great Sage Realm." "All right, this is a sacred badge. Take it. If you encounter any difficult problems in the future, just show me the sacred badge." As he spoke, Chun Daoxian took out a purple gold badge from his chest and handed it to Lin Yi. Lin Yi rolled his eyes and hesitated for a moment, but he still accepted the so-called holy medallion. Since someone was willing to give him benefits, he would be a fool not to take it. Regarding divine telekinesis, if you have anything you don't understand, you can ask me anytime. Chun Daoxian smiled brightly. Lin Yi did not stand on ceremony either, asking all the doubts he had in cultivation right away. One had to admit that Chun Daoxian was worthy of being a powerhouse immersed in divine telekinesis for hundreds of years. His understanding of divine telekinesis was extremely thorough. There were many questions, but with just a few words, Lin Yi was enlightened. He was suddenly enlightened and saw the light. The two people lost track of time in this discussion. Lin Yi's entire person seemed to have been reborn. Even his temperament changed. Many areas that he did not understand previously were incomparably clear now, carefree and unrestrained. After 6 hours, Lin Yi finally ended the consultation. "Off. Many thanks for Senior's guidance." Lin Yi got up and bowed slightly to Chun Daoxian, rather impressed in his heart. In the past, although his divine telekinesis was extremely strong, sweeping across those in the same realm to someone of Chun Daoxian's realm, he was still a beginner. The benefits that Lin Yi obtained from this discussion were completely not inferior to over 10 years of bitter cultivation. The power that his divine telekinesis could unleash was more than several times stronger than before. "Ha ha ha. No need to be overly courteous," Chun Daoxian said with a smile. "It's getting late. You should go back too. When you have time in the future, you can come over any time. Farewell, Senior." Chapter 473. When Lin Yi returned to his courtyard, only son Wu Yu came out to greet him. Where's Silent Soul?" Lin Yi asked directly. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he was quite worried. "Captain, right after you left, Silent Soul was dragged out by Miss Yu from next door. She said she wanted to walk around the school." Son Wu Yu curled his lips and said, "That Miss Yu looks so cold and only knows how to cultivate. I didn't expect her to walk around too." In Son Wu Yu's impression, Yu should be working hard on her cultivation. Therefore, when Yu dragged Silent Soul out, he was very surprised. Lin Yu was also surprised. He hesitated for a moment and didn't say anything. Yu's talent was not bad, and her identity was also very special. Since she was willing to be with Silent Soul, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't reject her. It was a good thing to be able to get a strong ally in Cebu Gakuin for the first time. Whatever, let's take a break first. Back in his room, Lin Yi continued cultivating and digesting the benefits he gained from the discussion. Although Lin Yi didn't have the 3,000 Heaven Pass ability and couldn't continue cultivating, he could still continue researching on the use of divine sense. Lin Yi cultivated while Sun Wu Yu continued to clean up the courtyard. This house was quite big, so it was troublesome to clean it up. After half an hour, Silent Soul finally returned. Exiting his cultivation state, Lin Yi went out to greet him. "Gongzi, you're back." Seeing Lin Yi appear, Silent Soul smiled. "Uh-huh." Slightly nodding, Lin Yi asked softly, "Where did you go with Yu?" Lin Yi didn't have much contact with Yu, so he needed to know more about her. We want to check out the place to buy ingredients and the pill house. Silent Soul suddenly laughed bitterly. This Cebu Gakuin is such a scam. Some of the saint-level ingredients cost over 1,000 points. If I ate every meal, it would probably cost a few 100,000 points in a month. The saint-level ingredients are very effective, so the points were well spent. Lin Yi nodded. This is Cebu Gakuin. The ingredients themselves aren't weak. That's true. Solitary Spirit grinned and immediately told him about what happened when she and Qingyu went out earlier, including her feelings towards Qingyu. After saying that, Solitary Spirit bit his lips and revealed a hesitant expression. Lin Yi was thinking about Qingyu's actions and didn't notice it. A moment later, Lin Yi was just about to turn around when he noticed Ji Ling's hesitation. He immediately asked, "What's wrong? What else happened?" On the way back, we met a group of seniors who wanted to tease us. Solitary Spirit pursed his lips, his expression not very happy. What? Hearing this, Lin Yi and Sun Wuyu's faces darkened. They immediately shouted in a low voice, "Who dares to be so bold? Do you know where they are? Let's go and find them." There's no need. Seeing the situation, Solitary Spirit was rather gratified in his heart and hurriedly stopped Lin Yi and Sun Wuyu, saying with a smile, "Elder sister Qingyue has already beaten them away. But they saw me. I'm afraid we'll have a grudge with them in the future." Hee. Lin Yi suddenly sneered. Make a grudge? That group of people dared to attack you, and they still want to live peacefully? Do you know who they are? Sun Wuyu clenched his fist and sneered as well. A group of people looking for death, daring to attack you. It'll be great if they dare to come after us. We'll let them know what kind of people they can never mess with. It's fine. Silent Soul was touched and quickly said, "It didn't get the upper hand either. Sister Qingyu is very strong and injured all of them. With her temperament, she seems like someone who would do such a thing." Lin Yi rubbed his nose and turned to look at Qingyu's courtyard. After returning from the hidden Saint Pavilion, Lin Yi would have a special feeling whenever he thought of Qingyu. Let's not talk about this anymore. Silent Soul smiled and stretched. We're finally at Cebu Gakuin. We can have a good rest. Do you still need us to follow you to the spirit gathering formation tomorrow? Silent Soul looked at Lin Yi in confusion. No need. You two have to go out and familiarize yourselves with this place in the next 2 days. Lin Yi said in a deep voice. We'll be living here for a long time. Phew, let's train seriously. The night went by uneventfully. The next day, Lin Yi finished his training and went to the courtyard to practice a set of fist techniques. After finishing a set of fist techniques, Lin Yi felt extremely comfortable. It had to be said that the Sacred Martial Arts Academy was not stingy with their disciples. The spiritual energy gathering formation in the courtyard was at a rather high level, and the amount of spiritual energy gathered was sufficient, making Lin Yi and the other two feel very comfortable. In fact, even his cultivation speed had increased a lot. Lin Yi did not wake up Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul. After giving Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu permission, he left the courtyard alone. Just as he left the courtyard, Lin Yi felt someone watching him. He turned around and was shocked. Not far away, Qingyu was leaning on the wall, silently watching him. "You're not bringing Silent Soul with you?" Qingyu raised her eyebrows, her eyes filled with confusion. "Heh, they've been working hard for a long time. I don't need them today. Let them have a good rest." Lin Yi replied, nodding slightly. Qingyu walked towards Lin Yi and whispered, "Let's go together." Lin Yi wanted to communicate more with Qingyu, so he immediately agreed. Not long after, Lin Yi and Qingyu arrived at the courtyard where the rest of the disciples lived. Elder Theta Scarabii had been waiting for a long time. More than 10,000 new disciples had gathered, leaving only a few people. Brother Lin, Miss Qingyu. Seeing Lin Yi and Qingyu come together, Shangwan Yunqi and the others were shocked and quickly surrounded them. Dao Feiyang asked doubtfully, "Brother Lin, where's Brother Sun Wuyu?" "Coincidentally, there's time. Let them have a good rest." Lin Yi smiled and answered everyone's questions. He also made an appointment with Dao Feiyang to go to the blood training ground after today. Suddenly, The clamor of the students stopped, and the sound of cold air being sucked in could be heard. Hearing those sounds, Lin Yi, Shangwan Yunqi, and the others were shocked. They turned around and revealed a shocked expression. A path opened up in the crowd, and Elder Theta Scarabii slowly walked over. Seeing this scene, Shangwan Yunqi and the others rolled their eyes and took a few steps back, leaving Lin Yi behind. They were very relaxed. No matter how good their performance was, it was impossible for them to catch the attention of an elder of Theta Scarabii's level. Lin Yi was the only one who had that possibility. After all, Lin Yi was a new disciple who broke the record of the hunting war. Chapter 474. Theta Scarabii's words, in the ears of the other students, made no sense and made them very confused. No one knew what Theta Scarabii was saying to Lin Yi, but they understood that Lin Yi had received an inheritance that even Theta Scarabii was surprised. For a moment, everyone, including Shangwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Dao Feiyang, were surprised. They looked at Lin Yi with eyes full of envy. No, Lin Yi shook his head slightly. Senior's inheritance is not suitable for me. Indeed, Chun Daoxuan's cultivation method was merely the 3,000 heavenly Dao Remit scroll. Even if Chun Daoxian broke through the limitations of the cultivation method and used his own talent to forcefully cultivate to a level surpassing that of a great sage, Lin Yi still wouldn't accept his inheritance. Chun Daoxian also understood this point, which was why he had never mentioned this before. In fact, in order to get Lin Yi to show him the 3,000 heavenly Dao scroll once, he was willing to help Lin Yi answer all of Lin Ye's questions regarding the cultivation of divine will. Of course, there were many things that Theta Scarabii did not know. He thought that Chun Daoxian was looking for divine sense geniuses to accept disciples. Seeing that Lin Yi did not accept Chun Daoxuan's inheritance, he could not help but feel a little disappointed. If Lin Yi had accepted the inheritance, he could become the great sage in a very short time. In the experience, he could spread the name of Sibu Gakuin. After a moment of silence, Theta Scarabii carefully sensed and found the holy token in Lin Ye's arms. He suddenly showed a look of surprise. The holy token was a very important item in Sibu Gakuin. Even an elder with real power like him had a hard time obtaining it. Chun Daoxian was able to obtain the holy token because of his talent. Now, Lin Yi had actually obtained Chun Daoxuan's holy token, which naturally surprised Theta Scarabii. Could it be that Chun Daoxian valued Lin Yi so much? Phew! Taking a deep breath, Theta Scarabii patted Lin Yi's shoulder and said in a low voice, "Don't let him down." After saying that, Theta Scarabii did not say anything more. His figure flashed, and he returned to his previous position. Hearing Theta Scarabii's words, all the students looked at Lin Yi with strange eyes. Everyone secretly made up their minds to build a good relationship with Lin Yi in the future. Even if they could not hug his thigh, they could not become enemies with Lin Yi. Not long after, the rest of the students arrived. When they saw Theta Scarabii, they greeted Lin Yi. In the previous hunting war, because they had hugged Lin Ye's thigh, they were able to obtain the 4th and 5th places and received generous rewards. Yin Shihao and Theta Scarabii knew that with their strength, they could only reach the top 100 at most. They were able to obtain such a good ranking because of Lin Yi. This made them even more determined to follow Lin Yi. Lin Yi was very satisfied with Yin Shihao and Shun Lingxiao's friendly attitude and nodded slightly. After a while, all the students arrived. Theta Scarabii called out softly and led the students in the direction of the sacred depository pavilion. The spirit gathering array was located in the southernmost area. It would take at least an hour to get there. Therefore, Theta Scarabii led Lin Yi and the others to the teleportation array beside the sacred depository pavilion and directly teleported the students to the southernmost area. Sibu Gakuin Outer Yard. Although it was not as big as the inner yard, it was still very large and was divided into 5 areas. There were teleportation arrays set up in the sacred depository pavilion and other places, allowing the students to quickly rush there. Of course, The teleportation arrays were not free. Every time they were used, points would be consumed. More than 10,000 people suddenly appeared around the spirit gathering array. In a split second, the people in the spirit gathering array were shocked. They quickly raised their heads and looked at the new students in confusion. Soon, many of the older students reacted and were immediately ecstatic. Some of them even stuck out their tongues and licked their lips. A milky white light surged and suddenly raised a huge fog. Spiritual energy surged like the sea and gathered crazily, instantly separating the older students from Lin Yi and the others. Outside the spirit gathering array, an old man sat cross-legged on a small slope. In front of him was a table full of tea sets. This year's new students are here again. The old man picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. He raised his eyes and looked at Lin Yi and the others. Glancing at the new students, the old man could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Why are there so many people this year? Ahem. Theta Scarabii coughed dryly. Her figure flickered and directly went to the old man's side under the gazes of the new students. She leaned close to the old man and whispered in his ear. After a while, the old man's mouth twitched. He immediately stared at the new students for a moment. Many of the new students thought that the old man was checking their talents and aura. They held their heads high and puffed out their chests, bringing out their best aura. Phew! The spirit gathering array can only accommodate a maximum of 3,000 people at a time. The 3,000 people I've chosen will stay. The rest can go to the arrays in the other 3 areas. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man waved his right hand lightly. A ray of light fell and immediately enveloped Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others. The ray of light fell without any pattern. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others were clearly standing together. However, Qing Yu, Yin Shihao, Dao Feiyong, and the others were not enveloped by the ray of light. As the ray of light flickered, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the other new students felt their bodies shake violently. They were controlled and flew out, pulling away from the other new students. This made Lin Yi and the others quite surprised. They looked at the old man in shock. Just this move alone was enough to show the old man's strength. Could it be that every elder in Cebu Gakuen has the strength of a great sage? Just as Lin Yi and the others were surprised, Theta Scarabii coughed lightly. All right, the rest of you, follow me to the other places. As soon as she finished speaking, Theta Scarabii's figure flashed and directly returned to the teleportation array. Without giving the other new students any time to react, she immediately activated the teleportation array. Swoosh! With a flash of light, more than 7,000 new students and Theta Scarabii's figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared before everyone's eyes. The corners of Lin Yi and the others' mouths twitched. Suddenly, their hearts trembled. This elder Theta Scarabii didn't even know how many people the spirit gathering array could accommodate. Wasn't this a little too unreliable? Lin Yi and the others did not know that although the spirit gathering array was very useful for cultivation, it also required a lot of points. Ordinary students simply did not have enough points to cultivate the spirit gathering array. In addition, in the past, only a few thousand new students were recruited each time. A single spirit gathering array was enough to accommodate everyone. Therefore, Theta Scarabii did not know that the spirit gathering array could only accommodate a limited number of people. The old man glanced at everyone and suddenly said, "This is a spirit gathering array at the peak of the sage level. You should know its specific effects. I won't say anything more. As new students, you have 3 free chances to come here to cultivate in the first 3 months. I suggest that you come here when you are about to break through. After 3 times, you can come here to cultivate again. Every minute of cultivation will consume 1,000 points. After 6 hours, the consumption will double. Therefore, if you want to speed up your cultivation, you have to earn more points." All right, there are older students this time. If you go in, you might be targeted by the older students. Chapter 475. What? You're not waiting for the seniors to leave before letting us in? TSK. What a trap. Many of the new students were shocked and looked at the old man in confusion. Most of the new students had yet to break through to the saint realm and were only 9 half-true saints. Even if there were students who had broken through to the saint realm, they did not have heaven-defying talents like Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi. They were no match for the seniors. Therefore, when they heard that they had to cultivate in the spiritual energy gathering array with the seniors, their faces changed drastically. Huh, the old man said indifferently. You can choose not to go in, but if you do, you won't have the chance to cultivate in the spiritual energy gathering array for the first time. Many of the new students were depressed when they heard the old man's words. Wasn't he forcing them to cultivate with the seniors? Even if they were pushed out later on, they would still be able to obtain many benefits. If they did not go in, they would not be able to obtain any benefits and would even waste a chance. I'm just giving you a reminder. I didn't give you the right to choose. The old man said indifferently. Oh no, I gave you the chance to choose. You can choose to give up or go in. Tell me when you've made up your mind, and I'll let you in. If you don't want to go in, I'll send you out. Many of the new students fell silent, and their faces were filled with helplessness. They could tell that the old man was not joking. They did not have a right to choose. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others did not feel the slightest pressure. To them, only the inner courtyard students could pose a threat to them. These outer courtyard students had nothing to fear. Even if they could not defeat them, they could protect themselves. After a while, all of the new students gave in and chose to enter the array. The old man smiled. I'm doing this for your own good. When you leave the institute in the future, the situation you will face will be more difficult than now. Without strength, you won't be able to obtain anything. Since I've said so, it's up to you whether you want to work hard or not. As long as you're strong enough, even your seniors won't be able to snatch away the resources you deserve. After saying that, the old man flicked his 10 fingers, and the fog that shrouded the spiritual energy gathering array dissipated. Go in. As he spoke, a gust of wind blew, sweeping Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others into the spirit array. Boom, boom, boom. The moment they entered the spirit gathering array, before anyone could even react, the spirit chi that was as turbulent as the sea was crazily injected into their bodies. Many of the new students had never had the chance to come into contact with a spirit gathering array of this level. Suddenly, they were absorbing the spiritual energy at such a fast speed that the meridians in their bodies swelled up. In an instant, all the new students didn't dare to speak again, nor did they dare to think too much. They all sat down cross-legged and started to refine the spirit energy within their bodies. Those who were able to pass the Cebu Gakuin's assessment were not weaklings. They quickly adapted to the environment and activated their techniques to refine the spiritual energy in their bodies. Boom, boom, boom. In the first place, the spirit chi in the spirit gathering formation was already very pure. There was no need for them to waste time refining it. They could directly absorb it and swallow it into their bodies. In an instant, everyone's aura gradually rose, and their expressions were incomparably excited. The increase in their strength was visible to the naked eye, and it made them excited. While the new students were able to adapt, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao adapted even faster. Not only did they rapidly refine the spiritual energy, but they could also increase the speed at which they absorbed the remaining spiritual energy in the air. In an instant, everyone was cultivating seriously and refining the spiritual energy. 15 minutes later, the speed at which the spiritual energy gathered in the spirit gathering array suddenly increased by a lot. Many of the new students were hit by the sudden increase in the speed of the spiritual energy, and all of them let out a muffled groan. Immediately, they sped up and adjusted their state. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others were already dissatisfied with the speed of the spirit gathering array. Now that the speed increased, they became excited. After another 15 minutes, Lin Yi had completely stabilized his cultivation after absorbing a large amount of spiritual energy. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Yi suddenly increased the speed of refining the spiritual energy. He wanted to use this opportunity to stabilize his cultivation at the peak of 8th Tribulation Half-True Saint. With the clue of the 3,000 heavenly Tao, Lin Yi was very concerned about his own cultivation realm. As long as he cultivated to the Great Sage realm, Chun Dao Xian will be able to tell him the whereabouts of the 3,000 heavenly Tao. That way, his future path would be smoother. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As Lin Yi increased the speed of his absorption, the spiritual energy madly gathered around Lin Yi. The spiritual energy was surging, and it was thicker than the surging waves of the sea. In an instant, Shangguan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao were awakened and quickly pulled away from Lin Yi and stood beside Lin Yi, absorbing the spiritual energy that surrounded the outermost layer. Lin Yi was like an ancient ferocious beast, crazily refining the spiritual energy. No matter how fast the spiritual energy gathered, under the support of his divine sense, Lin Yi was like a whirlwind, turning the spiritual energy into his own strength. However, Lin Yi's absorption speed was too fast, to the extent that the spiritual energy spontaneously gathered in one area was insufficient, and gradually, the spiritual energy in other areas was also pulled over. Interesting. It seems like the battle will happen soon. Outside the array, the old man sipped his tea and looked at the people inside the array, and the corners of his eyes were full of smiles. In the beginning, it was not obvious, but as time passed, all the spiritual energy in the array began to gather in Lin Yi's direction. Shangguan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao gradually adapted to the intensity of the absorption and helped Lin Yi to absorb some. The rest of the spiritual energy quickly poured into Lin Yi's body, strengthening his physique and strengthening his strength. In this way, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunxi, and Mu Yi were very refreshed, but the speed at which the rest of the people absorbed spiritual energy suddenly dropped by a large margin. Especially the older students, at the beginning, they had not finished their cultivation and were too lazy to care about the new students. After all, if they wanted to come in, they needed thousands of points, and almost all of them came here when they were about to break through. So time was of the essence. However, all the spiritual energy was absorbed by Lin Yi, and their steps of breaking through were cut off as if someone had chopped it off with an axe. Ordinary cultivation only required spiritual energy, but this group of people was in the midst of breaking through, and now that the spiritual energy was suddenly cut off, they were all incomparably angry. Damn it, who is so bold? They even dare to cut off our spiritual energy? Many of the older students cursed and opened their eyes, clenched their fists, and looked in the direction of the spiritual energy. Chapter 476. Just a new student? When everyone saw that Lin Yi was absorbing the spiritual energy storm by himself, their faces were filled with shock, and they couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Even they couldn't absorb so much spiritual energy in one go. Therefore, when they saw Lin Yi absorbing the spiritual energy in an orderly manner, their hearts trembled. This guy seems to be an 8th Tribulation half-true saint. Impossible, right? How can an 8th Tribulation half-true saint absorb spiritual energy so fast? When everyone sensed Lin Yi's cultivation realm, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Soon after, their faces gradually turned ferocious. Humph. Looking at his appearance, he must be using some kind of secret technique to absorb spiritual energy so quickly. Make a move, force this group of new students out. Damn it, we haven't even made a move, and he's already taken the lead. Relying on a secret technique, he really thinks he's so powerful. Many senior students cursed under their breath and turned to look at the person sitting in the middle. Seeing that person sitting like an old monk and cultivating, their hearts calmed down a lot. Make a move. Along with the low shout, many of the senior students formed hand seals one after another and abruptly increased the speed at which they absorbed the spiritual qi. Boom, boom, boom. In a split second, more than 10 senior students erupted simultaneously, and the spiritual energy in the spiritual energy gathering array rushed towards them like a reverse river. Boom, boom, boom. As the spiritual energy rolled, a surging pressure crushed Shangwan Yunxi, Muyi, and Shun Lingxiao. The three of them hurriedly retreated and pulled away from Linyi. Even so, they were seriously injured, and their faces were deathly pale. They could only absorb the spiritual energy at this time. This made Shangwan Yunxi, Muyi, and Shun Lingxiao extremely depressed. Damn it, what kind of sin did they commit? How could they be implicated when they were lying down? Boom, boom, boom. The spiritual energy rolled, and soon it reached the senior students. Sensing this, the older students could not help but sneer. Their eyes were filled with disdain as they looked at Linyi. Linyi, who was cultivating to his heart's content, could not help but frown when he suddenly lost the supply of spirit energy. He raised his head and saw those arrogant seniors. A group of saints doesn't need so much spiritual energy. Are they targeting me? Raising his eyebrows, Linyi was furious. He immediately took a deep breath, and in the next moment, the speed of absorbing spiritual qi increased again. Boom, boom, boom. The spiritual qi that had just gathered around the older student suddenly rushed towards Linyi at an extremely fast speed. Damn it, you actually dare to resist? Many senior students gritted their teeth, their eyes filled with anger. They didn't hold back in the slightest. Once again, they increased the speed at which they absorbed the spirit qi, pulling the spirit qi over. Rumble, rumble. For a moment, the spirit qi condensed into a huge cloud shape, constantly pulling. Every time it pulled, it could absorb more and more spirit qi. In just a short span of a few dozen breaths, the cloud shape had already filled half of the array. The pressure of the surging spirit qi descended and enveloped everyone. Hiss! Many new students were frightened as they looked at the cloud shape in shock. They could sense that there was a rich spirit qi in the cloud shape. As the cloud grew bigger and bigger, the spirit qi of the entire spirit gathering array was absorbed by it as soon as it appeared. In this way, no one in the spirit gathering array could absorb any more spirit qi. Soon, the older student who had been cultivating peacefully woke up. Phew! Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, the senior opened his eyes and saw Linyi fighting with the other seniors for spirit qi. He could not help but frown. What happened? The senior student furrowed his brows and hurriedly asked, "Big brother, you finally finished cultivating." Sensing that the senior had woken up, the other seniors around him were ecstatic. "Big brother, that kid is just a new student. How dare he fight with us for the spirit gathering array? He's too arrogant. Big brother, hurry up and take all the spirit gathering array." Oh, hearing this, the senior who was called Big Brother's face became solemn, and he carefully sized up Linyi. When he realized that Linyi was merely an 8th tribulation half-true saint, he couldn't help but stare blankly at Linyi. He muttered under his breath, "Hiss! He's merely an 8th tribulation half-true saint," but he was able to pass the St. Martial Academy's assessment and absorb so much spiritual energy from the spiritual energy gathering array. However, the gap between their cultivation realms is too big. The senior was a little surprised at first, but after realizing Lin Ye's cultivation realm, his expression eased a lot, and he did not take Lin Ye seriously. After all, in their understanding, a half-true saint was still a half-true saint, and they could not compete with a saint. Phew, let's settle this quickly. Seeing that the cloud-shaped spirit chi in the air was about to condense into a solid form, the senior student frowned slightly and immediately formed a seal with both hands. In the next moment, a surge of power suddenly surged from his hands and pulled the spirit chi that was about to condense into a solid form in the air. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The spirit chi, which seemed to have materialized, madly rushed towards the senior student. Lin Yu was caught off guard by the senior's sudden attack, and he gained the upper hand. He couldn't help but frown. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It had to be said that the senior was very strong. He was a late-stage saint, and when he made a move, the spirit gathering array was absorbed into his body. The remaining spirit chi revolved around the older students. Ha ha! When they sensed this, the older students were overjoyed. Their eyes were filled with disdain as they looked at Lin Yi. TSK, TSK. A new student is still a new student. He just came to the academy, and he's already thinking of snatching spirit gathering array. Bah! Boss, you can do it. Let's absorb all of their spiritual chi. Senior Brother Peng is mighty. Do your best, Senior Brother Peng. Absorb all the spirit gathering array from those arrogant freshmen. Lin Yi's face darkened when he heard these words. He was not the only one. The rest of the freshmen were enraged as well. Do you want to absorb all our spirit gathering array? Damn it, this is too much. Brothers, don't be afraid. There are more than 3,000 of us, and Senior Brother Lin Yi and Senior Brother Shangwan are here. Let's fight it out with them. A clear voice suddenly sounded from among the freshmen. Brothers, take back all the spirit gathering array that belongs to us. We have to let those senior students understand that we, the freshmen, are not to be bullied by others. As soon as the voice sounded, a ball of fire ignited in the hearts of all the freshmen. They all knew that when they first arrived at this school, they would definitely be bullied by the senior students. For example, during the hunting war, the senior students would wantonly rob them of their points. Therefore, after hearing these words, the anger of all the new students was ignited. Their eyes were completely red as they looked at the numerous older students. Chapter 477. These seniors have gone too far. We can't stand it. Brothers, let's attack together and snatch back the spiritual chi. We have more than 3,000 people. We don't need to be afraid of their small number. The anger in the hearts of many freshmen was stirred up. They all took a few steps forward and closed the distance between them and Lin Yi. Immediately, they sat down cross-legged and absorbed the spiritual chi as much as they could. Seeing this scene, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao were stunned for a moment. They immediately followed after him, also crazily absorbing the spiritual chi. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In an instant, the liquefied spiritual chi rushed in the direction of Lin Yi and the rest. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi formed a seal with both hands. The spiritual chi immediately revolved around all the freshmen. Every freshman could receive the blessing of the spiritual chi. Hiss! The spiritual chi was suddenly snatched away, and the laughter of the seniors came to an abrupt end. Even the big brother looked dignified as he stared at Lin Yi and the rest. Let's attack together. With a light shout, the big brother stretched out his right hand, and a strong pulling force erupted from his palm. The rest of the seniors followed and sped up, intending to pull the spiritual chi over. Ha ha! Sensing this, many of the freshmen laughed heartily and attacked at the same time. In an instant, a power that was as vast as the ocean surged forward. You want to pull the spiritual chi over again? You're dreaming. Amidst his loud laughter, a surging power crushed the pulling force of the older students in just a few breaths. More and more spiritual chi revolved around the freshmen and was immediately injected into their bodies. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a disciple absorbed the spiritual chi to the critical point and began to break through. There were more than 3,000 freshmen, and more than half of them had been suppressing their realms. Now that they were in the spiritual chi gathering array, they could no longer suppress it and began to break through. Originally, the older students had been able to hold their own against the freshmen. However, as more and more freshmen broke through, their strength became more and more powerful. In this way, the seniors could no longer compete with them. There were too many freshmen. Although they had the advantage in realms and strength, they were still unable to snatch the spiritual chi away. This made the seniors' faces very ugly. If they couldn't even bully the freshmen, how could they have any face left? This scene happened at the 4 arrays in Cebu Gakuen at the same time. After a quarter of an hour, the seniors still couldn't gain the upper hand. They continued to fight with the freshmen. The spirit chi was like a roly-poly toy. One moment, it would fall towards Lin Yi and the others, and the next moment it would fall toward the older students. A moment later, the The senior, who was addressed as Big Brother, had an incomparably furious expression on his face. His heart was also burning with rage. At the same time, surging spiritual chi appeared out of thin air and gathered behind him. The strong pulling force pushed the spiritual chi on Lin Ye's side toward the senior. Lin Ye couldn't help but frown when he saw this. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. "Let's do it again." The freshmen shouted and exerted their strength again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In an instant, countless spiritual chi gathered toward them. At the same time, the senior shouted. The spiritual chi he gathered was like a cannonball. It suddenly exploded toward Lin Yi and the others. "Oh no!" Lin Yi was shocked when he saw this and exclaimed. However, before he could do anything, the cluster of spiritual chi had already arrived in front of them and collided with the previous cluster of spiritual chi. Boom! Bang! 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 The two clusters of spiritual chi suddenly collided. It was as if Mars had collided with Earth. A powerful force exploded. Rumble! A loud sound accompanied by a surging shock wave suddenly spread out. Poof! The freshmen only felt a huge force hit their chests. Their bodies were directly sent flying. While they were still in the air, they spat out blood. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Ling Xiao had already suffered serious injuries. At this time, they were simply unable to withstand the surging power of the collision, and were also sent flying backwards. Poof! In the blink of an eye, more than 3,000 freshmen, as well as Shangguan Yunqi and the other two, were sent flying out of the spiritual chi gathering array. As soon as they landed, they coughed violently. Damn it! Lin Ye's face was gloomy. He looked at the senior with eyes full of coldness. No matter what, Shangguan Yunqi and the others were his friends. Now, the senior had actually kicked his friends out in front of him. How could he tolerate this? Ha ha ha! Awesome! We finally kicked those annoying freshmen out. Let's continue to cultivate. The senior students were ecstatic. After more than 3,000 freshmen left, all the spiritual chi immediately gathered in their direction. In an instant, the spiritual chi around the senior students became denser. However, very quickly, they abruptly discovered that Lin Yi was actually not sent flying. They were all stunned for a moment. And something's not right. Why is there another person? It's impossible, right? Big Brother's move just now was enough to send a mid-stage saint flying. That guy is just an 8th tribulation half-true saint. How can he still stay here? The senior student called Big Brother looked at Lin Yi in confusion. He couldn't believe that a mere 8th tribulation half-true saint could escape from his move. He had used this move to send many senior students out. What more an 8th tribulation half-true saint? Forget it. Since I didn't send him out the first time, I'll do it again. Shaking his head slightly, the senior student didn't think too much. He waved his right hand and prepared to attack again. However, just as he was about to make a move, he suddenly sensed that the entire soul-gathering formation trembled. And what's going on? His heart tightened, and the senior student's hand froze. Looking up, his pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Following his line of sight, he saw a 5-colored light shining beside Lin Yi. Buzz! Buzz! The endless spiritual chi was like a whirlpool, madly converging towards Lin Yi. What's going on? Why am I suddenly nervous? F***CK. Everyone, hurry up and chase him out. Many senior students panicked, and they tried to absorb the spiritual chi to resist Lin Yi. Boom! 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 However, before they could make a move, a surge of energy bloomed along with the 5-colored light. It swept out and spread out. In the next moment, the energy was like a giant hammer that weighed several hundred kilograms, and it slammed into the senior students' bodies. Their bodies were like a kite with a broken string directly flying out. Chapter 478. Bang! 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 Loud bangs resounded through the air. Within the spirit-gathering formation, other than the senior student who was holding his head with both hands and crouching on the ground, the rest of the senior students were all sent flying and landed heavily outside the formation. Wah! Seeing this scene, the old man who was leisurely drinking tea suddenly stood up and stared dumbfoundedly at Lin Yi, who was in the middle of the formation. This heaven-defying monster! Lin Yi was merely an 8th tribulation half-true saint, but he was able to take on more than 10 senior disciples by himself. He even sent more than 10 mid-stage and late-stage Saint Realm experts flying. How shocking was his strength! Even though the elder had been in charge of this place for many years, he had never seen someone as talented as Huang Xiaolong. This kid's talent is extremely high. We must report this. The elder muttered under his breath and ignored the teacup that he had knocked over. He stared fixedly at Lin Yi and the senior disciple who was inside the array. The elder wasn't the only one who was shocked. All the new students and senior disciples were shocked. Heavens, Big Brother Lin Yi is so powerful. He sent more than 10 mid-stage and late-stage Saint Realm experts flying with his strength alone. Is Big Brother Lin Yi really an 8th tribulation half-true saint? Gulp. This strength, this talent, is truly terrifying. What the F***CK? What's going on? Why are we being sent flying? That guy, it's impossible, right? There are so many of us, but we were sent flying by an 8th tribulation half-true saint? Everyone fell into a heated discussion, and a look of panic appeared on their faces. No one dared to believe what was happening in front of them. Hiss. Big Brother, do your best. Send that freshman flying. Take revenge for us. After a long time, the senior disciples finally accepted their fate and cheered loudly. They were filled with confidence in the senior disciple, and they swung their fists at him. Senior Brother Punk, kill that guy. Let him understand how powerful the experts on the Transforming Saint list are. Senior Brother Punk, do your best. Many of the new students looked nervously at Lin Yi. They were very curious to see just how far Lin Yi could go. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao bitterly smiled and whispered, "This time, he will be in the limelight again." Yes, he defeated those 2 peak saints. Even though he used a scheme to injure those peak saints, his strength is still not something that late-stage saints can compare to. That senior is only a late-stage saint. He's definitely no match for Brother Lin. Shangguan Yunqi and the other 2 were very confident in Lin Yi and were not worried at all. AI, Brother Lin is really too amazing. You're merely an 8th tribulation half-true saint, but your strength is comparable to a peak great sage. He's too monstrous. Why do I feel like I'm just a piece of trash when compared to him? Shun Lingxiao sighed, and a gloomy expression appeared on his face. Before coming to Cebu Gakuen, Shun Lingxiao had thought that his talent was not the best in the world, but it was extremely rare. He thought that he would be able to obtain a decent amount of strength in Cebu Gakuen. Who would have thought that after coming to Cebu Gakuen, he would encounter so many monstrous geniuses? Even if he excluded Lin Yi, there were still more than a dozen people who had strength that surpassed him. If he hadn't chosen to hug Lin Ye's thigh, he wouldn't have been able to obtain the 5th place and obtain so many points. After so many things had happened, if it wasn't for his strong heart, he would have been defeated long ago. Who, that guy's a monster. Shangguan Yunqi suddenly patted Shun Lingxiao's shoulder and said earnestly, "Don't compare yourself to him. As long as we can follow behind him and follow his footsteps, that's enough. If we can continue to follow him, after some time, when you look back, you'll realize that you've already left the others far behind." That's right. Mui also nodded and said, "Only by following a true powerhouse, a monstrous genius, our progress will also be faster." Haha, that's true. With a loud laugh, Shun Lingxiao withdrew his thoughts and looked up. He saw that Lin Yi and the older student had already begun to fight. Previously, Lin Yi had used the 5 Elements realm to erupt with a powerful force that instantly cleared everyone. However, the older student was able to become one of the top 10 existences on the Divine Transformation list. He was not to be trifled with. He immediately summoned a set of sacred weapons to protect himself. After the explosion of the 5 Elements realm ended, the older student did not give Lin Yi any time to attack again. With a flip of his right hand, a stone seal suddenly flipped out. Boom, boom, boom. Under the guidance of the stone seal, The torrent of spiritual energy was like a surging sea, crushing towards Lin Yi. In the face of such a vast spiritual energy attack, Lin Yi rolled his eyes and suddenly took out a mirror. Buzz! The mirror's light reflected and shone on the torrent of spiritual energy. Boom, boom, boom. Almost in an instant, the surging spirit chi flow suddenly changed direction and crazily absorbed the spirit chi within the spirit gathering formation. Once again, it grew stronger, and with an even more berserk speed and power, it charged towards the senior student. Hiss! When he sensed this, the senior student couldn't help but curse, and his face was covered in embarrassment, anger, and unwillingness. No, I have to think of a way. The older student's eyes kept rolling as he thought of a way to resist the torrent of spiritual energy. A moment later, the older student gritted his teeth and did not defend himself in the slightest. He directly rushed towards the torrent of spiritual energy. Senior Brother Peng? What is Senior Brother Peng doing? Senior Brother Peng, be careful. Outside the spirit gathering array, many older students cried out in alarm when they saw this scene. Their hearts were filled with worry. Some of the older students could not bear to see Senior Brother Peng collide with the powerful torrent of spiritual energy and close their eyes. Many of the freshmen were also puzzled. They did not understand why the older student would directly rush forward. Could it be that he felt that there was no way to resist? So he simply gave up and gave up? Not only were the students confused, the elder who was standing was also stunned. He immediately raised his right hand, and a ray of light appeared. He was already prepared to rescue him at any time. As long as the older student showed any signs of injury, he would make a move. Rumble! An intense explosion resounded. Under everyone's horrified gazes, the senior student had shockingly collided with the torrent of spiritual energy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In just a breath's time, the older student's figure was completely enveloped by the torrent of spiritual energy. The surrounding crowd, regardless of whether they were freshmen or seniors, could not help but shiver as they stared with trembling eyes. Chapter 479. Rumble. The torrent of spirit chi was like an unstoppable giant wheel as it rolled over. In an instant, it swallowed up the senior student and drowned his figure. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but panic and suck in a breath of cold air. Even the freshmen felt a lingering fear in their hearts. They were afraid that the senior student would lose his life because of the torrent of spiritual energy. Not far away, the elder was just about to rescue the senior when he raised his eyebrows. He cursed under his breath and dispersed the light in his hand. He suddenly felt a surge of energy within the spirit chi torrent that shot up to the sky. Rumble. Almost at the same time that the elder dispersed the light, the spirit chi torrent suddenly emitted a bright and dazzling light. A strong aura, like the explosion of an atomic bomb, suddenly dispersed all the spirit chi torrent, revealing the figure within. Everyone was greatly shocked. When they looked over with rapt attention, they were shocked to discover that the figure's arms were stretched out, greedily absorbing the scattered spiritual energy. At the same time, the aura in his body was like a volcano that was about to erupt. It was extremely unstable. Hiss, there's an aura. It seems like Senior Peng is breaking through. Oh my God, Senior Peng is breaking through in the middle of a battle. Many of the senior students were shocked when they realized this. Although fighting in the spirit gathering array was not a battle, it was more vicious and more difficult than a battle. Therefore, they were shocked when they saw this scene. Many of the freshmen were thoroughly impressed with Senior Peng. Interesting. Lin Yi nodded slightly. His eyes moved, and he dispersed the attack. After all, this was Cebu Gakuen. He could not kill, and naturally, he could not interrupt someone's breakthrough. Any conflicts could wait until after the breakthrough. Rumble, rumble. In an instant, the spirit gathering array, which was originally very lively, suddenly quieted down. Only the turbulent spirit chi was left. It was constantly being absorbed by the senior to strengthen his body. The senior closed his eyes tightly and controlled the spirit chi to stabilize his realm. He was looking forward to breaking through to the next realm. After a while, Lin Yi realized that there was still some time before the senior would break through. He simply walked to a remote place and crossed his legs to cultivate again. At this moment, only the two of them were left in a huge spirit gathering array. The spirit chi was very abundant. Therefore, even if the senior was breaking through, there was still enough spirit chi for him to absorb. Seeing this scene, the seniors and freshmen were envious. If they had known that Lin Yi and Senior Peng could absorb the spirit chi so harmoniously, they would not have fought. Now all he could do was watch someone else cultivate in the spirit gathering array. It was really too embarrassing. In particular, the best spirit gathering array could only be entered once every half a month. Sigh, this is so depressing. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have fought. That's right, we can only watch them cultivate now. Low sighs could be heard in every corner of the city. However, there was no medicine in this world. As time passed, the surging spirit energy within the spirit gathering array finally began to slowly dissipate. Boom! A loud sound rang in the air, and the senior's body trembled. The violent energy from his breakthrough shook the entire spirit gathering array. Ha ha ha! In the midst of his wild laughter, the senior clenched his fists and waved them in the air. He felt that the energy in his body was abundant, and it seemed like there would never be a day when it would dry up. At the same time, Lin Yi, who was beside him, had also broken through. With a goal in mind, Lin Yi's cultivation rose rapidly to the 9th tribulation half-true saint realm. He was only a step away from entering the true saint realm. Of course, he had to find a suitable opportunity to take that final step. Lin Yi still had the breaking tribulation pill in his hand. It could allow him to break through to the true saint realm. Of course, Lin Yi would not consume it directly. At the very least, he had to stabilize his 9th tribulation half-true saint realm before he could consume it. Otherwise, the solid foundation he had built would be destroyed. Lin Yi would not do something as foolish as destroying his own foundation for a moment of pleasure. After Lin Yi and senior brother Peng completed their breakthroughs, they couldn't help but look at each other. The moment their gazes met, a cold light flashed in their eyes, and it was on the verge of exploding. Everyone's hearts tightened. Just when they thought that the two of them were about to fight, senior brother Peng suddenly laughed. This brother, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to break through so easily. I, Peng Tianyu, am indebted to you. After saying that, Peng Tianyu turned around and left the spirit gathering array. Since he had broken through, there was no point in staying in the spirit gathering array. Lin Yi did not hesitate and left the spirit gathering array as well. Soon, there was no one left in the spirit gathering array. The elder who was guarding the spirit gathering array revealed a smile and sat down. He held a teacup and took a sip of tea. He looked satisfied. Not bad. This time you guys are done early. Let's go. Let this old man have a good rest. Hearing this, the gazes with which the students looked at the old man instantly became strange. Originally, they thought that the elder was praising them. They didn't expect that the elder was just glad that he could rest for a while. This made the students speechless, especially the freshmen, including Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao, were all shocked. This was the Cebu Gakuin's elder? Was it really good to be so lazy? Thank you, elder. Peng Tianyu bowed respectfully to the elder and immediately cupped his fists. We still have things to do, so we won't disturb the elder's rest. We'll take our leave first. Seeing that, Lin Yi could not help but touch his nose. His eyes were full of surprise. This guy's strength is not bad. He just broke through to the peak saint realm, but he can give me a pressure that's close to Yuan Mo's. Even he is so respectful to this elder. It seems that this elder is not as weak as he appears to be. Narrowing his eyes, Lin Yi pondered for a moment and immediately reacted. He also bowed respectfully to the elder. Elder, this student will take his leave. After that, Lin Yi turned around and called out to Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others. Then, they rushed into the distance. The other students did not notice this. Seeing that the elder was so lazy, they did not greet him. They each called out to their friends and left. Looking at these students, the elder's face was full of smiles. He suddenly stretched out his index finger and drew on the table. Buzz. A moment later, a golden light flashed on the table. A few lines of words turned into a stream of light and suddenly flew into the distance. Phew, this year's freshmen are not bad. There are a few good seedlings. Chapter 480. Brother Linyi, where are you going? Shangwan Yunxi, Muyi, and Shen Lingxiao caught up with Linyi. Their eyes were full of surprise. After it was over, Linyi did not leave through the transmission array. Instead, he walked to the side. Shangwan Yunxi and the other two were surprised. They quickly caught up and called out to Linyi. Looking back, Linyi saw that it was Shangwan Yunxi and the others. He smiled and said, "This place is quite close to the heart-refining abyss. I plan to take a look." Heart-refining abyss? Hearing this, everyone was slightly surprised and immediately showed a yearning look. They had all heard of the heart-refining abyss and the heavenly thunder realm. They knew that these two places could improve their strength, but they had not been there yet. When they heard that Lin Yi was going to the heart-refining abyss, they all followed him. In the Cebu Gakuin outer court, in order to ensure that the spiritual power in each area was evenly supplied, each side had a core construction, and even the allocation of personnel was quite reasonable. On the way to the heart-refining abyss, students passed by from time to time. At other times, the older students would look surprised when they saw them, sizing them up. But this time, none of the students paid any attention to them. They were all rushing forward. Hiss, it seems that the heart-refining abyss is very tempting. Lin Yi touched his nose. With so many people going, the effect of the heart-refining abyss must be good. Shangwan Yunxi and the others were quite curious about the heart-refining abyss. At this time, seeing hundreds of people rushing to the heart-refining abyss, they suddenly became more interested. Lin Yi was originally not interested in the heart-refining abyss. It was just that Chun Daoxian asked him to go there more often to strengthen his spiritual power. Although it could not help him continue to break through and reach level 56, it could make his use of spiritual power stronger, and the power of his spiritual power would become more fierce. But now, Lin Yi was curious about the heart-refining abyss. It seemed that the senior students in the Spirit Gathering Array did not even have 1/10 of the people who went to the heart-refining abyss. He wanted to see why the heart-refining abyss was so attractive. Exchanging a glance, Lin Yi, Shengwan Yunxi, and the others nodded slightly. At the same time, they sped up towards the heart-refining abyss. Swish! Swish! All of a sudden, the sound of something breaking through the air echoed in Lin Yi and the others' ears. Turning around to look, Lin Yi and the others were shocked. Dozens of figures flashed over from afar. Their speed was quite swift, and in less than a dozen breaths' time, they had approached Lin Ye's group. These people are quite strong. Lin Yi nodded slightly, and his expression suddenly became serious. The dozens of figures were all middle-stage saints. The few at the front were late-stage saints. Their auras were like thunder, especially their leader. Even though he was still quite a distance away from the peak of the Saint Realm, his strength was definitely amongst the strongest amongst the advanced stage Saint Realm experts. Just as Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunxi were sizing up the group of people, they also stopped and looked at Lin Yi and the others. Upon closer inspection, they were shocked to discover that the group of people were wearing badges that looked like snowflakes on their left chests. It seems like they're from the same faction. I've heard from Du Yuelen that there are many factions in Cebu Gakuin. I wonder if there will be many conflicts. Narrowing his eyes, Lin Ye's gaze swept across the area. When he clearly saw a figure, a stunned expression immediately surfaced on his face. He had just thought of Du Yuelen, and he did not expect to see Du Yuelen's figure. Not far away, there was also the senior student who had accompanied Du Yuelen to participate in the hunting battle. Lin Ye's eyes gradually turned cold. He knew that this time, it would be difficult for him to settle this peacefully. Big brother, it's that bastard. Previously, he bullied me in the hunting battle, and even stole my points. Just as Lin Yi was hesitating about whether to leave, Du Yuelin suddenly discovered Lin Ye's figure and immediately shouted. In an instant, the group of people turned their attention to Lin Yi. Shen Lingxiao looked over and also discovered Du Yuelin. He immediately exclaimed, "It's you." Shen Lingxiao frowned slightly. He naturally knew that Du Yuelin and Lin Yi had a dispute, but he did not expect their luck to be so bad. They had just entered Cebu Gakuen, and they had already bumped into each other. Just as Shen Lingxiao was worrying, Lin Yi and the leader suddenly looked at each other. There seemed to be sparks in their eyes. For a moment, the entire place was silent. Everyone was silently watching the two of them. Even though Du Yuelin was panting with anger, he didn't dare to say anything. Sensing the oppressive atmosphere, Shangguan Yunqi and Muyi were both surprised. They did not know about the dispute between Lin Yi and Du Yuelin, nor did they understand why Lin Yi would have a grudge against those seniors. "Brother Shun, do these people have a grudge against Brother Lin?" Shangguan Yunqi and Muyi asked in a low voice, carefully sizing up Du Yuelin. Although they were surprised, they were not afraid at all. With their talent, if it were not for the revision of this year's assessment, they would have all entered the inner yard. In terms of strength, they were not inferior to the seniors of the outer yard. However, they did not want to have a grudge with others for no reason. Cebu Gakuen was full of hidden talents. If there was someone behind these seniors, it would be embarrassing. "It's not a grudge, but some people, TSK. Shen Lingxiao sneered and looked coldly at Du Yuelin. Shen Lingxiao had clearly seen everything that had happened before. It was clear that Du Yuelin wanted to seduce Silent Soul, but after being exposed by Lin Yi, he wanted to use his strength to force Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi was too strong, and he tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Unexpectedly, Du Yuelin resented Lin Yi. "I guess there's no way to resolve this," Lin Yi said indifferently. "Brother Shangguan, if you have something to do, you can leave first. Listen to what you're saying." Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi and Muyi's faces changed slightly. They quickly said, "We've been through the hunting war together. How can we leave first?" We'll share blessings and misfortunes together." Shen Lingxiao grinned. Anyway, I've long found that kid unpleasant to the eye." In an instant, Shangguan Yunqi, Muyi, and Shen Lingxiao stepped forward and stood side by side beside Lin Yi. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, and a warm current flowed through his heart. Du Yuelin and the others frowned and carefully looked at Lin Yi and the others. Du Yuelin, in particular, was very sensitive. As soon as he saw Lin Yi and the others, he felt a heavy pressure. Therefore, when Du Yuelin shouted, he did not immediately take action. Instead, he carefully observed Lin Yi and the others. He was afraid that he had accidentally kicked an iron plate. "Were you the one who stole my brother's points?" Chapter 481. Boom! Boom! Shangguan Yunqi and Muyi were about to make a move when Lin Yi raised his right hand. In the next instant, five-colored light surged out from his palm and dissipated the violent holy pressure. Du Yuetian's eyes narrowed when he saw this scene, and his heart sank. He had observed Lin Yi for a long time and was certain that he was in the ninth tribulation half-true saint realm. Even though Shangguan Yunqi had broken through to the mid-stage saint realm, he was only one person. Muyi and Shen Lingxiao were nothing in his eyes. Therefore, even though Du Yuetian knew that Lin Yi had the strength to defeat a mid-stage saint realm expert, he still decided to make a move. However, Du Yuetian didn't expect that Lin Yi would be able to dissipate his holy pressure without Shangguan Yunqi even making a move. "Not bad." Du Yuetian spat out a mouthful of turbid air and sneered. "However, you bully my younger brother. No matter how strong you are, I will seek justice for my younger brother today." "That's right. Since you dared to bully our patriarch's younger brother, you're courting death." The people behind Du Yuetian were all his followers, so they naturally loved and respected Du Yuetian very much. When they heard Du Yuetian say that Lin Yi bullied his younger brother, they all became angry and glared at Lin Yi and the other three. Only the few seniors who had interacted with Lin Yi earlier revealed a bitter smile. They knew that the conflict between Lin Yi and Du Yuetian was mostly Du Yuetian's problem. It could be said that Du Yuetian was the one who provoked Lin Yi, but Lin Yi taught him a lesson. Ha ha ha! Lin Yi roared with laughter as he looked at Du Yuetian with disdain. You don't have to say so much. If you want to cause trouble, just say it. Lin Yi sneered and said, using the excuse of getting justice for your younger brother is really despicable. To think that you're a Saint Realm expert. Could it be that you've only cultivated your body and not your brain? You, hearing this, Du Yuetian flew into a rage. He could not help but reach out and glare at Lin Yi. He was not the only one. All the members of the Flying Snow sect were glaring at Lin Yi furiously. Who, after taking a deep breath, Du Yuetian didn't continue to talk about that issue. He knew that it must be his younger brother who provoked others. That was why he had a grudge with Lin Yi. If he said too much and let the members of his sect know, it would not be good. Brat, you are very arrogant. Du Yuetian slowly walked in front of Lin Yi. Cold air burst out from his body, causing Shangwan Yunqi and the others to shiver. Cold qi condensed, and white smoke suddenly enveloped Lin Yi, Shangwan Yunqi, and the other two. Feeling the bone-chilling cold, Lin Yi coldly snorted. With a thought, his fire domain erupted. The fire domain broke through the shackles, and it turned into a rain of fire that evaporated the cold air. Shangwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others who were feeling a little cold suddenly felt the scorching heat. The cold air in their bodies dissipated. Raising their heads, they saw the white fog and cold air dissipating. Sucking in a breath of cold air, Du Yuetian frowned. His face was filled with disbelief. He couldn't believe that Lin Yi, a mere ninth tribulation half-true saint, could neutralize his attacks one after another. How is it possible for this brat to do this? My strength is comparable to a peak Saint Realm expert. Why can't I suppress him? Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Du Yuetian stared fixedly at Lin Yi. What? Lin Yi raised an eyebrow and sneered. Do you want to fight now? I remember that there is a rule in the Institute. If there is a grudge between us, we can fight at the blood refinement ground. If you don't mind breaking the rules, I'm more than willing to accompany you. Du Yuetian's heart skipped a beat as he glared at Lin Yi. However, his hands were trembling in nervousness. Originally, Du Yuetian's cultivation was higher than Lin Yi's. Logically speaking, he should be the one in control. However, Lin Yi's strength was too heaven-defying. He had repelled his attacks twice. While Du Yuetian was still in shock, Lin Yi took the initiative to request to go to the blood refinement ground. In this way, Lin Yi took the initiative to persuade him. Next, regardless of whether Du Yuetian agreed to Lin Yi's request to go to the blood refinement ground for a bet, he was already at a disadvantage. Thinking of this, Du Yuetian couldn't help but gnash his teeth. His heart was filled with hatred for Lin Yi. He wanted nothing more than to grind Lin Yi's bones into dust. It could be said that Du Yuetian was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. If he didn't agree, he would appear too cowardly. He wouldn't be able to talk to his younger brother, and it would disappoint the other members. Your younger brother was bullied, and you didn't even dare to say a word. What kind of future could you have by following such a person? What's more, this time he was the one who initiated the challenge. If he didn't agree, he would be digging his own grave. However, if he agreed, his momentum would be at a disadvantage. He was actually worried about losing. Humph! After a long while, Du Yuetian gritted his teeth and shouted, Of course I won't fight with you today. Lin Yi, right? If you have the guts, let's have a gambling fight in the blood refinement ground 3 days later. If you lose, apologize to my younger brother and return all the points you robbed from him. Rolling his eyes, Du Yuetian took the initiative to propose a gambling fight, intending to turn the tables. Ha ha! Lin Yi's lips curled up slightly. I can have a gambling fight. But what if you lose? If I lose, everything will be written off. Bullshit. Lin Yi's face suddenly darkened. He sneered and said, You have a good plan. Previously, it was your younger brother who provoked me. Now that he lost, he came to you for help. After all, I know people like you. When you beat the young, the old will come out. If we weren't in Cebu Gakuen, I wouldn't dare to fight with you. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if your father and grandfather came out after I beat you. I don't want to bully those old people. Speaking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but wave his hand and say helplessly, "Alas, I'm still too soft-hearted." Ha ha! Shengwan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao were stunned for a moment and then burst into laughter. Behind Du Yuetian, the old students' faces turned red and they couldn't help but clench their fists. Puff! Du Yuetian was so angry that his qi and blood surged up. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. After spitting out the blood, Du Yuetian trembled all over. He stared at Lin Yi fiercely, wishing he could eat Lin Yi alive. Phew! Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Du Yuetian said fiercely, "If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me." "That's not necessary." Lin Yi grinned and said, "If you lose, ask your younger brother to apologize to me in front of everyone. After all, when he provoked me last time, the elders were there, so I didn't teach him a lesson. You have to pay for what you did." Chapter 482. Fine. Du Yuetian's heart was filled with rage. He ignored Lin Ye's request and agreed to it without hesitation. "If you lose, you'll have to kneel down and apologize. You're the first one who dares to provoke our Du family." "First one." Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders and said disdainfully, "Don't worry, I won't be the last one." "All right, you're coughing up blood so often. It's obvious that you're suffering from excessive internal heat. Be careful and take care of your body. Don't die from coughing up blood on the battle stage before we even fight. If that happens, I won't be able to explain myself." "You." The corner of Du Yuetian's mouth twitched as he trembled in anger. If it weren't for the Academy's strict rules, he would have already attacked Huang Xiaolong. "Ayaya, you have to take care of your body." Lin Yi continued to smile and said, "If you lose, and then use your poor health as an excuse to deny it, then you'll have a big headache." "Bastard! Bastard! You've gone too far." Du Yuetian and the other members of the Flying Snow sect were enraged when they heard Lin Ye's words. They took a step forward and surrounded Lin Yi and the others. Biting cold holy might burst out from their bodies and shrouded Lin Yi, Shengwan Yunxi, and the others. In an instant, Shengwan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao's bodies bent down a little, their brows furrowed. Each of them erupted with their own strength, dispelling the saint pressure and straightening their bodies. As for Lin Yi, he activated his 5 elemental spheres and isolated the holy might as he looked at everyone indifferently. The other members of the Flying Snow sect felt a chill in their hearts when they noticed this. They couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva as their fear of Lin Yi deepened. They couldn't believe their eyes. Lin Yi was merely an ant in the 9th tribulation half-true saint realm. Logically speaking, they should be able to kill him with a flip of their hand. "What? You don't dare to make a move?" Lin Yi didn't even look at those members. The corners of his mouth curled up. He looked at Du Yuetian with disdain and said indifferently, "Now, do you still want others to do it for you and take the punishment for you?" "You." Du Yuetian spat out another mouthful of blood. He was infuriated. He didn't think that Lin Yi could actually speak so well, angering him so much that he almost vomited blood and died. When the other members heard Lin Ye's words, their expressions changed and they took a few steps back. Cebu Gakuen did not have many complicated rules. There was only one unbreakable rule. No matter how talented a genius was, if he dared to casually injure someone in the academy, he would be expelled. Du Yuetian snorted coldly and shouted in a deep voice, "What a sharp-tongued brat. I hope that after 3 days, your strength will be as powerful as your mouth." "Brothers, stop." This brat purposely infuriated everyone to make us violate the Academy's rules. What a treacherous guy. That's right, this bastard is too treacherous. Many seniors were dissatisfied with Lin Yi and scolded him in a low voice. The Flying Snow sect was considered a powerful force in the outer yard. Now that they had been provoked by Lin Yi, a freshman, they were naturally displeased. Du Yuetian was the only one who stood behind silently and stared at Lin Yi with resentment. However, he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. Lin Yi, I'll be waiting for you in 3 days. After giving Lin Yi a fierce stare, Dui Wetian waved his hand and left with the rest of the group. The group of people rushed toward the heart-refining abyss. Dui Wetian felt very aggrieved and worried that Lin Yi would scold him. Therefore, he didn't dare to stay there any longer. He quickly disappeared from the sight of Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the other two. TSK. This guy. Lin Yi shook his head slightly and looked indifferent. It seemed that he didn't care about the fight in 3 days at all. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao glanced at Lin Yi and couldn't help but worry. They asked in confusion, Lin Yi, are you sure you can kill him? You can't use formation scrolls in the blood-refining field. Shangguan Yunqi hurriedly reminded Lin Yi. The reason why Lin Yi had been able to defeat UNMO and Tai Yu the previous 2 times was because UNMO was already injured. The other time, he had used a formation scroll to injure Tai Yu and Tai Yi. No problem. Lin Yi could sense Shangguan Yunqi's good intentions. He immediately said with a smile, it's difficult to defeat UNMO without using formation scrolls, but it's not a big problem to defeat someone who's in the later stage. It's good that you're confident. Shangguan Yunqi nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, these 2 days I'll mobilize some people to see if we can get more information on that guy. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. Thank you very much, Lin Yi said with a smile. Okay, don't worry about them. We'll show them in 3 days. The most important thing now is to go to the heart-refining abyss. I like to see what's so good about the heart-refining abyss that it can make so many students go crazy. Okay, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Shun Lingxiao all smiled and were full of anticipation. Lin Yi? All of a sudden, another crisp voice rang out. Lin Yi and the others looked up and were surprised. Not far away, another group of people rushed over. The person in the lead was an elder with a white beard. Behind the elder were Qin Yu, Dao Feiyong, Yin Shihao, and the others. Hiss, why are there so many new students? Lin Yi and the others blinked, their hearts filled with surprise. A group of over 2,000 people rushed over in a grandiose manner. Seeing Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi, Dao Feiyong, Yin Shihao, and the others quickly ran over and said excitedly, Brother Lin Yi, Brother Shangguan, why are you here? We're going to the heart-refining abyss to take a look. But you guys, with so many people coming together, are you also going to the heart-refining abyss? Lin Yi glanced at the group hesitantly. Hee. Yin Shihao scratched his head and said, after experiencing the soul-gathering array, the elder saw that we were new students and brought us to the heart-refining abyss to experience it. He brought you to the heart-refining abyss? Shangguan Yunqi blinked and suddenly asked, do you still need to spend points? No need, Yin Shihao said with a smile. Elder Murong is the elder in charge of the heart-refining abyss. We're new students, so we can experience it for free. However, Elder Murong is being mysterious. It seems like he's hiding something from us. Phew, someone else is elder. Chapter 483. Lin Yi and the others were depressed. The elders of other families were indeed treated differently. Not only did they bring them to experience the heart-refining abyss, they were also exempted from points. Their elders, on the other hand, didn't care when they were setting up the spirit-gathering array. After it was over, they were not given any help and were asked to leave by themselves. Brother Lin Yi, what's wrong with you? Dao Feiyong and Yin Shihao were surprised when they noticed the changes in Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others' faces. Nothing. Lin Yi and the others shook their heads. They looked sideways and saw Qing Wei and the others walking over with Elder Murong. Elder Murong was not old. He had a goatee and a solemn expression. After sizing up Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others, Murong Ning asked in a deep voice, the 4 of you are also new students? That's right. Lin Yi and the others quickly cupped their fists and bowed. Greetings, Elder. Murong Ning nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, in that case, Follow me to the heart-refining abyss. Coincidentally, the heart-refining abyss will open in 15 minutes. You can go and experience it. Thank you, Elder. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others looked at each other and were overjoyed. Although the four of them had enough points to go to the heart-refining abyss, it was still good to save some points. Murongning nodded and did not say anything else. He continued to lead the new students forward. Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi followed behind Murongning and chatted with Dao Feiyang and the others. As they walked, Shangguan Yunqi told them what had happened earlier. Dao Feiyang, Yin Shihao, and the others denounced Du Yuetian and the others. Immediately after, Dao Feiyang became excited again, thinking about how to find the other seniors to gamble and fight. Qingwei listened quietly and did not participate. She looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression. About half an hour later, a cloud of mist suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Within the dense fog, a purplish-black light flickered, giving off an extremely bewitching and intimidating feeling. Before the mist, there were thousands of figures sitting cross-legged in the surroundings, waiting for the mist to open. Hiss! Why do I feel like there are ghosts in this black fog? This is the heart-refining abyss. Many of the new students raised their heads and looked at the strange fog. All of them revealed shocked expressions. Even Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others had looks of surprise on their faces. They shifted their gazes downwards and heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the thousands of figures. Originally, they were still slightly worried about whether there would be any danger within the heart-refining abyss. But now, when they saw that there were so many other students besides them, there was definitely no danger at all. We're here. Murongning pointed at the purplish-black mist and said indifferently, "The heart-refining abyss is inside this mist. As for the specific effects, you will naturally know once you enter. The heart-refining abyss opens every day at noon. When night falls, it will close. You can only stay inside for 6 hours at most. If night falls and you are still in the heart-refining abyss, something dangerous will happen." Hearing this, Lin Yi and the others remembered Murongning's words in their hearts. At first glance, one could tell that the heart-refining abyss was filled with danger. If one was not careful, it was highly likely that something dangerous would happen. As Murongning explained the heart-refining abyss, he led Lin Yi and the others to the front of the fog. When they heard Murongning's voice, the seniors who were cultivating with their legs crossed woke up one by one. They looked up and bowed one after another. "Greetings, Elder. Elder, you're finally here. Ha ha ha. Quickly open the heart-refining abyss. After today, I'm confident that my spiritual will can become a saint." In an instant, there was a clamor as everyone spoke. Sensing this, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others could not help but stare at Murongning. It was obvious that Murongning's position in the hearts of the students was not weak. "You little fellows." Murongning shook his head slightly and stepped into the fog. Soon, he overtook all the students and walked to the front of the fog. At this time, the seniors finally noticed the 2,000 new students who had been following Murongning. They were all surprised. The new students had just entered the academy yesterday. So many people did not know that the new students had arrived. Therefore, they were quite surprised to see so many new students. TSK, I didn't expect new students to come so soon, but there seems to be a lot of new students this year. Indeed, more than 2,000 people, much more than before. Many seniors sized up Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others as they discussed in low voices. "Those few girls are quite good-looking. I wonder if they can make it to the fairy list? Tisk, that's the inner yard list. We can forget about it." More than 2,000 people is a lot. I'm afraid you don't know that there are more than 10,000 new students this year. More than 10,000 people? How can there be so many? All of a sudden, many of the older students were astonished. They kept sizing up Lin Yi and the others. "I wonder how many of them entered the inner yard directly. Phew, I'm so envious of them. They can enter the inner yard without having to compete so fiercely. If you can get into the top 100 in the assessment that year, you can also enter the inner yard." At this point, the discussion among the seniors came to an abrupt end. They stopped talking and silently looked at Lin Yi and the other freshmen. The Flying Snow sect disciples, including Du Yuetian, looked at Lin Yi and the others with anger in their eyes. Hee, let's see how long they can last in a while. After a while, another voice was heard. Back then, I lasted for 15 minutes. 15 minutes? I almost lasted for 30 minutes. I remember that almost every expert on the Saint transforming list lasted for about 2 hours. Hearing these words, the new students who were not paying attention turned their heads and looked at the seniors in confusion. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others looked at each other and felt a chill in their hearts. They knew that this trip to the heart-refining abyss would not be easy. Silence. Suddenly, Murong Ning's voice reverberated in everyone's ears like a bell. The numerous older students became silent. Since everyone is here, the heart-refining abyss will now open. As Murong Ning shouted, he put his hands together, and a milky, white light bloomed from his hands. Murong Ning took the opportunity to wipe it down. In an instant, the fog in front of him dissipated quickly like snow under the scorching sun. Chi chi chi. Amidst the crisp sound, a crack suddenly appeared in the fog, and it quickly spread. Hua hua hua. In just a dozen breaths, the fog was torn apart, and a dozen passages appeared. Chapter 484. Feeling the mocking gazes of the seniors, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others looked at each other, frowned, and shook their heads. They planned to let the rest of the freshmen go in first to test the waters. The heart-refining abyss has opened. All students prepare to enter. Murong Ning shouted softly. In an instant, some of the freshmen who did not notice anything unusual rushed towards the heart-refining abyss with excitement. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Those who sensed the abnormality were in the minority. More than 1,000 freshmen rushed into the fog and rushed towards the heart-refining abyss. Buzz! However, the instant that group of new students charged into the fog, their bodies abruptly stiffened on the spot. Their bodies continuously twitched as if they had been electrocuted. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Without exception, every freshman who rushed and twitched and froze on the spot. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi couldn't help but squint his eyes and suck in a breath of cold air. What's going on? Could it be that there's a restriction inside? Or a formation? Shangguan Yunqi, Dao, Feiyang, and the others frowned, their hearts filled with doubt. No way, Lin Yi said in a deep voice. This is a place that the Academy created for us to cultivate. It definitely won't be a formation or restriction. That's true. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others nodded slightly, their brows still tightly knitted. At the same time, the rest of the freshmen also sensed that something was wrong. Their charging momentum suddenly stopped as they looked at the fog in front of them in bewilderment. The freshmen were dumbfounded. They did not dare to believe it. This was the Academy. How could there be danger? Ha ha! Seeing this scene, many of the seniors could not help but laugh out loud. They had also experienced being laughed at before. Now that they had the chance, they naturally had a laugh back. Don't worry, this is only the heart-refining abyss, a test for you, Murong Ning said indifferently. The heart-refining abyss is not an ordinary method to raise your strength. Therefore, if you want to obtain the approval of the heart-refining abyss, you have to pass this test. If you don't pass, then you will never be able to enter the heart-refining abyss in the future. Hearing this, all the freshmen's faces turned serious. Test? After pondering for a moment, Lin Yi said in a low voice, "Everyone, be careful." After they went in, their bodies stiffened without any warning. It can be seen that the heart-refining abyss test for us should be in the aspect of divine sense. When we go in later, everyone must stay alert. Don't let divine sense invade your mind. Divine sense. Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others could not help but smile bitterly. They were focused on martial arts and were not very familiar with divine will. Therefore, when he heard Lin Ye's words, he felt rather helpless. If the test was about martial arts, they wouldn't be afraid at all. However, when they thought about divine will, they immediately became timid. Swish! Swish! Suddenly, there were many new students who directly flew in and rushed in. They already understood that they had to attempt this trial. Otherwise, they would lose the opportunity to enter the heart-refining abyss. The heart-refining abyss was one of the few great methods to increase one's strength in Cebu Gakuen. Naturally, they were not willing to miss it. Therefore, even if there were many dangers, they would still charge in without hesitation. 1. As soon as they rushed into the heart-refining abyss, the new students were no exception. Their bodies suddenly stiffened. Damn it, let's fight. Seeing this, Shangwan Yunshi and the others no longer hesitated. They gritted their teeth and rushed straight into the heart-refining abyss. Taking a deep breath, Lin Ye's figure flashed, and he also entered the heart-refining abyss. 1. As soon as Lin Yi stepped into the heart-refining abyss, he felt an invisible sharp aura before he could even step on the ground. It was like a storm covering the sky and covering the earth as it attacked him. The formless energy was extremely powerful. It suddenly slammed into Lin Ye's head, causing him incomparable pain. What a strong force. Fortunately, Lin Yi was a divine will saint. He was very familiar with divine will attacks and was not directly defeated. He endured the pain, sat down cross-legged, and began to adjust his breathing. Outside the fog, Murong Ning saw this scene and could not help but be shocked. He muttered, "This little guy can actually withstand the first attack." That was an attack comparable to a peak divine will saints. Looks like there might be a big surprise this year. I just don't know how far he can go. Murong Ning squinted his eyes and no longer observed the others. He stared at Lin Yi. However, because of this, Murong Ning did not notice that on the other side, a young girl had also landed and sat down cross-legged to resist the divine will attack. In just a short while, more than 2,000 new students rushed in, their bodies twitching continuously. More than 2,000 people twitched together, looking very heroic. For a moment, many of the older students even forgot that they were going in to cultivate. They all stood outside and watched the new students go through the test. Every 10 years, new students were recruited. It was very rare to see the new students go through the test of the heart-refining abyss. Therefore, the older students would rather give up a day of cultivation to watch the new students suffer. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The divine will power came down wave after wave like a waterfall, blasting on the bodies of the new students. After withstanding the first wave of attack, the subsequent divine will attacks were much more relaxed. Many of the new students were talented people. After withstanding the first wave of attack, they gradually stabilized. Boom, boom, boom. The divine will power came down crazily like thunder, exploding continuously. After a while, the divine will attacks suddenly stopped. In an instant, many of the new students' bodies suddenly relaxed and relaxed. However, before they could completely relax, the divine will power suddenly exploded again. Boom, boom, boom. The violent power was like a giant hammer, hammering on the hearts of the new students. This time, the attack was more violent than the previous one. In addition, many of the new students had just relaxed and were not prepared at all. Suddenly receiving such a fierce attack, all of them lost their minds, and their entire being was stunned on the spot. Dang, dang, dang. The divine will turned into a giant hammer and hammered on the minds of the new students. Even Lin Ye's body trembled, and his face suddenly became ferocious. The divine will attack was too powerful. Dang, dang, dang. Puff. Suddenly, the dozens of figures trembled violently and fainted, collapsing in the fog. TSK, TSK. It hasn't even been half an hour, and there are already people who have fainted. Looks like this year's new students are not very capable. Seeing this scene, many of the older students showed a disdainful look. Murong Ning waved his right hand, and a few white lights appeared, suddenly enveloping those who had fainted and bringing them out of the fog. Chapter 485. The spiritual force was like a giant mountain that pressed down on everyone's bodies and crushed their souls. As time passed, the spiritual force attacks became more and more violent, and the speed of the attacks became faster and faster. In the beginning, it took half an incense stick to burn for a wave of attacks. Later on, it was reduced to 10 minutes. Due to the large number of new students this time, many of the weaker ones could not withstand the spiritual force attacks. At every moment, there were people who fainted and were carried out by Murong Ning. After 15 minutes, there were less than 1,000 new students who could stay in the heart-refining abyss. The speed of elimination was too fast. In 15 minutes, 66% of the people were eliminated. It was shocking. Moreover, after the new students were eliminated, they fainted and could only lie on the ground, occupying a large area. There was not much space around the heart-refining abyss. Now that it was occupied by the unconscious new students, it was a tragedy for the older students. They kept shrinking their space. After a while, they were hugging each other. Some of them even ran far away and flew to the tree branches to look over. In the past, there were less than 1,000 new students each time. In addition, it was impossible for all of them to come at once. The space in the heart-refining abyss was enough for the new students to faint. However, this time, there were more than 3,000 people here. Now that more than 1,000 people had fainted, there was not enough space. However, in order to see how long the new students could hold on, the older students would rather squeeze together than enter the heart-refining abyss. When he noticed this, the corner of Murong Ning's mouth twitched. "A bunch of bastards? Why are you still looking here?" Murong Ning turned around and glared at the older students. "Hurry up and get in. Leave me some space." Cough, cough. Hearing this, many of the older students looked embarrassed and hurriedly stepped back. However, no one was willing to enter the heart-refining abyss. "All of you," Murong Ning said resentfully. "Why aren't you going in? If you stay here any longer, today's training time will be over." Hearing this, some of the older students were shocked. However, before they could do anything, a voice rang out. "How is that possible? These new students can only hold on for 2 hours at most. Those who can last for more than an hour are all geniuses on the transforming saint ranking. Yeah, I don't believe any of them can surpass 2 hours. Not bad, not bad. It's only an hour. We can still afford to wait. Hee hee. All those years ago, I was always watched by the other seniors. This year, I can finally see these new students being tortured. It's said that after they wake up, they will even make a fool of themselves." In an instant, many of the older students once again sat firmly on the fishing platform. However, they were worried that Murong Ning would force them to enter the heart-refining abyss, so they couldn't help but retreat a little. Seeing this scene, Murong Ning was infuriated. His face and neck were flushed red, and he wished he could throw those new students in as well. "Elder, there's no problem. It's only an hour. Hee hee. If someone can last for 2 hours, Pao Pao Han, will definitely run 5 laps around the heart-refining abyss naked. Brother, I'm impressed. Respect." The numerous students began to laugh heartily. Seeing this, Murong Ning sighed. He knew that these senior students had been suppressed for so many years, so they naturally needed to release themselves. Thus, he couldn't be bothered to care about them. What's more, in 2 or 3 days, when the news of the hunting war spread, these senior students would probably be even more depressed. If he didn't let them see the miserable state of the new students, that would be a little unreasonable. If those unconscious new students could understand Murong Ning's thoughts, they would definitely be dumbfounded. "What's going on? Don't tell me we're shameless?" As the senior students made a ruckus, more and more new students fainted. One by one, they fainted. Soon, the surroundings of the heart-refining abyss were filled with unconscious bodies. In some places, there were even 3 or 4 people lying together, causing the senior students to laugh heartily. "This won't do. This won't do." Murong Ning frowned slightly. His lips moved, and he waved his hands gently. A milky white light suddenly spread out. Like a gentle breeze, the light swept across the crowd and immediately wiped away the remnant divine sense in their minds. "Oh, Ah. Not long after, those who were lying on the ground woke up and moved their hands. Opening their eyes, the new students who woke up had a confused look as they looked around. What was this place? This fog? Why does it look so scary? Many of the new students had forgotten what had happened previously. No, don't touch the fog. Ouch, ouch, ouch. At the same time, there were some who were quite powerful and could still remember a little. However, as soon as they tried to recall, they would have a splitting headache and squat on the ground while holding their heads. There were also some new students who were curiously looking at the heart-refining abyss or the senior students outside. All of the new students seemed to have lost their minds, doing all kinds of things that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Noticing this, the senior students laughed out loud and gave pointers to the new students. They were amused by their stupid actions. Occasionally, there would be new students who fainted. Similarly, there would also be new students who woke up. This cycle ensured the space around the heart-refining abyss. In addition, there weren't many new students left in the heart-refining abyss. Moreover, they were all quite talented. It wasn't like before when so many people fainted at once. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the heart-refining abyss, the divine sense continuously attacked the crowd. At this moment, almost an hour had passed. There were only over 300 people left in the abyss. Among these people, other than Lin Yi and Qing Yu, the rest of them were drenched in sweat, and their clothes were wet. Their faces had already become ferocious, and their teeth were about to shatter. Even so, none of these people were willing to give up just like that. Although they didn't know the benefits of surviving the test, based on their experience, they clearly understood that the longer they lasted in the test, the greater the benefits they would gain in the heart-refining abyss in the future. Buzz. However, 1 hour was a hurdle in the heart-refining abyss. Every 1 hour, the soul consciousness attacks in the heart-refining abyss would increase exponentially. Boom, boom, boom. If the previous divine sense was like a huge mountain pressing down, then in an hour, the divine sense was like a surging tide that crazily pressed down. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 486. Buzz. Murong Ning was already prepared when he saw those people flying out. He waved his right hand and pulled those people to the side and gently placed them on the ground. In an instant, the previously empty seats were filled up again. The heart-refining abyss was originally filled with people, but now there were only 8 people left. They were Lin Yi and his group. What the F***CK? It's been an hour. There are still so many freshmen who can hold on until now. It's impossible. I remember that in my batch, there were only 3 people who could hold on for an hour. 1, 2, 8 people. Oh my God. Are all the freshmen demons? Seeing Lin Yi and his group of 8 still in the heart-refining abyss, the seniors were shocked. In the past, every time a new student came to the heart-refining abyss, there would at most be 3 to 4 people who lasted for an hour. Now, 8 of them had held on for an hour, which shocked the seniors, especially Du Yuetian and the others who had a conflict with Lin Yi. Looking at Lin Ye's ferocious face, their hearts trembled. Du Yuetian narrowed his eyes and even began to think about whether he should continue to bet with Lin Yi. At this time, although he had the confidence to defeat Lin Yi, Lin Ye's talent was too strong. He was worried that Lin Yi would soon surpass him and step on him. If there was a conflict between them at this time, it was inevitable that Lin Yi would take revenge on him in the future. Hiss! There are so many people who can hold on for an hour. Murong Ning was even more surprised. Originally, he was full of hope for Lin Yi. He did not expect that reality would give him such a big surprise. Murong Ning turned his head and looked at Shangwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others. He found that their bodies were pale and their sweat seemed to be running out. He could not help but frown and sigh. It seemed that Shangwan Yunqi and the others would not be able to hold on for much longer. Murong Ning continued to look. When he saw Qing Wei, his face suddenly stiffened and his whole body became sluggish. This girl, his mouth was wide open as if an egg could be stuffed into it. Murong Ning looked at Qing Wei in a daze and could not believe his eyes. After an hour of divine sense attack, Lin Yi was already cold all over. At this time, Qinghua looked as if nothing had happened, except that her face was slightly pale. Because Qingyue's position was hidden, if one did not look carefully, it was impossible to see clearly. If Murongning did not notice that so many people had held on for an hour, he would not have noticed Qingyue's abnormality. Oh God! After regaining his senses, even Murongning, who was extremely powerful and had seen many great storms, was also astonished by Qingyue. This talent is simply too powerful. Buzz! While Murongning, Qingyue's divine sense waves. Qingyue, 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 Qingyue. After half a quarter of an hour, Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others were no longer sweating. Their bodies were like trees, withering away. Lin Yi and Qing Yu were the same as before. Not much had changed. Buzz! Rumble! Close to 2 hours, under the surprise discussion of many seniors, Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest could no longer hold on. Their bodies went soft and they fell down. Finally, Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest did not hold on for 2 hours. Huff! Luckily, they did not hold on for 2 hours. Quite a few people can reach this point in half an hour and half an hour. Seeing this scene, many seniors suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they turned their gazes to Lin Yi and Qingyue. An ominous premonition suddenly appeared in their hearts. It was very likely that they would be slapped in the face by these two, especially the disciple called Han Pao Pao. His forehead was full of sweat. If Lin Yi and Qingyue broke through for 2 hours, he would have to run naked. He said that sentence in front of thousands of people. He could not easily ignore the oath. For a moment, everyone, including those bewildered freshmen, stared fixedly at Lin Yi. The current Lin Yi was enduring the frenzied attacks of those divine senses. Each wave of attack could bring pain to Lin Yi, tempering Lin Yi's 3,000 heavenly Tao. In itself, after Lin Yi broke through, he rarely cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Tao. Therefore, his utilization and comprehension of the 3,000 heavenly Tao was not very strong. Unexpectedly, following the tempering of the divine senses, Lin Yi's comprehension of the 3,000 heavenly Tao became increasingly powerful. Boom! Suddenly, Lin Yi's divine sea trembled. His entire person suddenly became clear. Although the 3,000 heavenly Tao did not advance a step further, at this time, Lin Yi's own divine sense power was much more condensed than before. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Frenzied divine sense power landed, crushing Lin Yi's divine sea. The tide-like attacks continuously wanted to invade Lin Yi's mind. However, the strengthened 3,000 heavenly Tao's telekinesis power was more or less as powerful as those divine sense powers in terms of rank. This way, those divine sense power attacks were no longer effective on Lin Yi. The twitching body suddenly stopped. Lin Yi's face eased up a lot. His breathing also calmed down. The divine sense attacks were still like tide-like waves, crashing into Lin Yi and Qingyue, wave after wave. And why isn't that freshman's body twitching anymore? Haha, he's finally exhausted too. Looks like he'll be chased out very soon. Suddenly, a senior student laughed loudly. In the past, there had never been anyone who could last for more than 2 hours. Therefore, those senior students were also unwilling to see a freshman being able to last. Something's not right. You all look at his expression. Why did he relax? This guy wouldn't be. Why do I feel that this guy could still last for a long time? Some of the older students who were observing carefully had strange expressions on their faces. Time slowly passed under the shock of many senior students and Murongning. Soon, it was about to reach the critical point of 2 hours. Gulp! The sound of saliva swallowing could be heard. Many senior students were sweating profusely as they stared at Lin Yi. Rumble, rumble, rumble. All of a sudden, the divine sense attacks strengthened again. Like a small hurricane, they turned into countless regions and swept across the heart-refining abyss. Lin Yi and Qing Yue's bodies trembled at the same time. Seeing this scene, many senior students revealed hopeful looks in their eyes. However, the heavens did not care for them. Under Murong Ning's gradually excited expression, Lin Yi and Qing Yue's bodies stabilized again. Monster! This is definitely a monster-level talent. Murong Ning gasped in shock. Suddenly, he formed a seal with both hands. A milky white light appeared and suddenly turned into a small bird. Murong Ning bit his finger and threw out a drop of blood. In an instant, the scene in the heart-refining abyss was injected into the small bird's body. Go! Chapter 487. 2 hours, a quarter of an hour, another quarter of an hour. Time continued to pass. Lin Yi and Qing Yu were like old monks in meditation, not affected by the divine thought fluctuations at all. The surrounding senior students were all dumbstruck, frozen on the spot. Even if someone secretly hit them, they did not feel anything. They just stared at Lin Yi and Qing Yu numbly. At this time, those new students also quietly recalled the previous incident. Each and every one of them was incomparably ashamed. Looking at Lin Yi and Qing Yu again, they were even more shocked beyond belief. They had all experienced that tide-like attack, crazily crushing, not giving them the slightest chance to catch their breath. Under that kind of attack, they only lasted for less than a quarter of an hour. However, Lin Yi and Qing Yu were completely fine. This comparison was simply the difference between heaven and earth. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, several figures descended from the sky again, landing beside Murong Ning. Everyone was taken aback. Lowering their heads to look, the sound of sucking in a cold breath immediately sounded. It was only to see that several gray-bearded elders looked at Lin Yi and Qing Yu at the same time. Their expressions changed slightly, their eyes filled with wild joy. My God, isn't that Elder Tianyong who is in charge of exchanging items in the Sacred Treasury Pavilion? That seems to be Elder Danny Hua of the Pill Pavilion. That's Elder Mo Qing of the Fire Cloud Arena. Many senior students cried out in surprise, reaching out their hands to point at those few elders. Hearing that, those teachers were shocked and envious in their hearts. They did not expect that Lin Yi and Qing Yu's monstrous performance actually alarmed so many elders. More than 2 hours have passed. The two of them are actually still hanging in there. Many elders, even if they had experienced great storms and waves, were all excited at this time. For thousands of years, Cebu Gakuen had many geniuses. But until now, there had never been anyone who could last more than 2 hours when entering the heart-refining abyss. Moreover, Lin Yi and Qing Yu's attitudes were extremely good. Even if they were told that they could still last for another 2 hours, they would not doubt it at all. Monstrous. This is truly a monstrous talent. I remember that Chun Dao Xian, the #1 divine will genius, only took 2 hours. Of course, his body was a burden to him. At that time, his body was only at the first tribulation half-true saint realm. That kid isn't any weaker than Chun Dao Xian. His body is only at the early stage of the saint realm. No, this kid's aura is only at the 9th tribulation half-true saint realm. After sensing Lin Ye's cultivation level, those few elders couldn't help but smile bitterly. A mere 9th tribulation half-true saint had actually lasted for so long in the heart-refining abyss. This was no longer a monstrous genius, but an inhuman. Just as the many elders were astonished, Lin Yi and Qing Yu, who were in the heart-refining abyss, were fed up with the endless attacks of the divine consciousness. They didn't know how long this attack would last. If it continued for 6 hours, wouldn't it be a waste of time? After his divine consciousness was strengthened, the divine consciousness was no longer able to help Lin Yi increase the power of his divine consciousness. Therefore, Lin Yi quickly began to counterattack. His divine consciousness spread out like a clenched fist, and he began to attack the divine consciousness that had condensed into tornadoes. The moment Lin Yi made his move, Qing Yu, who wasn't far away, also sensed it. In the next moment, The two of them made their move at the same time and began to dissolve the tornadoes formed by the divine consciousness. Hoo. As Lin Yi and Qing Yu made their move, the entire heart-refining abyss's outer region was thrown into chaos. Countless divine consciousness trembled and rippled together. After all, these divine consciousness were inanimate objects, and they could only rely on their instincts. Moreover, Lin Yi and Qing Yu were both experts in the Tao of divine consciousness. Gradually, they began to devour the divine consciousness. Soon, the power of divine sense began to shrink and retreat. However, they had already arrived in front of Lin Yi and Qing Yu. How could they escape? At the same time, on the 11th level of the Sacred Depository Pavilion, Chun Daoxian, who was quietly cleaning, suddenly raised his head. His eyes, which were covered by a cloth, emitted a strange light. This is the aura of the 3,000 heavenly Tao? No. Why are there two? There's another aura. It seems to be a remnant scroll, but strange. It seems that the 3,000 heavenly Tao contains a great secret. The other person, I have to find him too. The light gradually dimmed. Qin Daoxian lowered his head again and cleaned the floor. All his emotions were restrained, like a deep pool, an ancient well without ripples. Inside the heart-refining abyss. In less than 15 minutes, the outer channel that was originally filled with divine consciousness fluctuations actually completely dimmed. Huh! With a soft shout, Lin Yi leaped up and floated in the air. The biting, cold divine consciousness automatically emitted and shone on Lin Yi, making him look like a god descending to the mortal world. Although Lin Yi's divine consciousness did not break through to the 56th level, his divine consciousness had been strengthened by a lot. Under the tempering of the heart-refining abyss, it was not inferior to an ordinary 56th level divine consciousness. Divine consciousness becoming a saint. The many elders opened their mouths slightly, but the shock in their hearts weakened by a lot. The two of them actually neutralized the divine consciousness attack. Really impressive. This is an unprecedented feat. Several elders let out a long sigh, looking at Lin Yi and Qing Yu with fiery gazes. Boom, boom, boom. Before long, Qing Yu also leaped up, bringing along biting cold divine consciousness. The next moment, her arms stretched out and absorbed those divine consciousnesses into her body. Another divine consciousness saint. In the past few batches of new students, there was not a single divine consciousness saint. Why did two suddenly appear this time? The elders' expressions changed. A moment later, Lin Yi and Qing Yu both reacted. Just as they were about to speak, the sound of wind whistling suddenly came from behind them. When they turned back, Lin Yi and Qing Yu's expressions changed drastically. They saw a surging storm sweeping over. The divine consciousness power was mixed with the power of lightning and fire, as if it was going to destroy the world, surging over violently. Lin Yi and Qing Yu did not dare to resist. They quickly turned around and flew out. The surging power kept hitting the purple fog, causing the entire ground to tremble. Not good. The heart-refining abyss is going berserk. Hurry up and do it. Murong Ning, Tian Yong, and the other elders' expressions changed. They shouted softly and flew up together, a biting cold divine aura emerging from their bodies. Clang! Set after set of supreme sacred artifacts appeared. The elders each flashed in a direction, releasing their territory behind them. Their power was like spring water that kept gushing out. Hey, a seal! Their hands flew, and as the hand seals were formed, the fog that originally shrouded the heart-refining abyss rolled and suddenly collided with the divine consciousness power in the heart-refining abyss. Walala! When the divine consciousness power came into contact with the fog, it was like snow meeting the scorching sun, quickly dissipating. Chapter 488. The violent divine sense dissipated, and the heart-refining abyss also calmed down. Seeing this, Many students heaved a sigh of relief and wiped away the sweat on their foreheads. When the heart-refining abyss went berserk, all of them felt a strong pressure. Some of the weaker freshmen were even suppressed to the ground, unable to get up. After a long sigh of relief, everyone turned their attention to Lin Yi and Qingyue. Whether it was the seniors or the freshmen, they were completely convinced by the two of them. Only those from the Flying Snow sect who had a conflict with Lin Yi were pale, their mouths twitching. "Damn it, let's go!" Du Yuetian looked around and cursed under his breath. Then, he led the group away. He did not even enter the heart-refining abyss. He was afraid that if he stayed here, it would affect his beliefs. Cough, cough. Soft cough sounded. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest walked to Lin Yi and Qingyue's side and congratulated them. After carefully sizing up Qingyue, Shangguan Yunqi suddenly said, "I thought that Brother Lin would be able to pass the test of the heart-refining abyss. I didn't expect you to do it too. You've hidden it well." Shangguan Yunqi smiled bitterly, feeling depressed. Originally, he thought that his talent was only below Lin Yi's. Now, it seemed that Qingyue was not to be underestimated. "I'm only good at divine sense," Qingyue said indifferently. "If we were to compete in martial arts, I'm not your match. The one you really have to admire is him." With that, Qingyue pursed her lips and pointed at Lin Yi. "Ha ha ha. He's not a normal person. Don't compete with him." Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi felt much better. Whether Qingyue was telling the truth or not, she had given him face. The corner of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi clenched his fists and smiled at Shangguan Yunqi. "Brother Shangguan, if you have time, why don't we spar?" "Ha ha ha. Well, I still have something to do." How could Shangguan Yunqi seek death? He immediately refused. Just as Lin Yi and the others were fooling around, Murong Ning, Tianyong, and the other elders retrieved their supreme, sacred weapons after suppressing the heart-refining abyss. With a flash, they arrived before Lin Yi and Qingyu. "Greetings, elder." Lin Yi and Qingyu didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly bowed. No need to stand on ceremony. A few of the elders smiled and looked very gentle. "How long has it been since you guys broke through to divine will saints?" Murong Ning suddenly asked. "It's been a while," Lin Yi and Qingyu replied. On the 7th floor of the Sacred Scripture Pavilion, there are many treasures and skills related to spiritual sense. If you have time, you can go take a look. Murong Ning smiled and said, "Keep this jade tablet well. When you enter the heart-refining abyss in the future, you don't need to stay in the outer area. Go directly to the core area. Once you reach the core area, don't wander around. Cultivate according to the areas we've assigned you." As he spoke, Murong Ning took out 2 jade tablets and handed them to the two of them. After looking at each other, Lin Yi and Qingyu didn't hesitate and accepted the jade tablets. In an instant, the surrounding crowd was envious. Especially the seniors. Their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. To think that they had cultivated in Cebu Gakuen for more than 10 years and hadn't had the chance to obtain a jade tablet. Lin Yi and Qingyu just joined Cebu Gakuen and had already obtained one. The difference was like heaven and earth. All right, let me remind you. In the core area of the heart-refining abyss, 10,000 points will be consumed in 2 hours. When you come, you must prepare enough points. Murong Ning smiled, but the smiles on Lin Yi and Qingyu's faces gradually disappeared. 10,000 points in 2 hours. That would be 30,000 points in a day. The speed of consuming points was like flowing water. It was too fast. For a moment, Lin Yi was incomparably desperate for points. The remaining points from the hunting war, adding up the points awarded, was just over 1 million points. After renting the house, there was only over 400,000 points left. He still had to guarantee a month's food expenses, as well as next month's rental fee. Lin Yi's head immediately swelled up. The ancients did not deceive me. The price of bringing people in was seriously too great. That point consumption would rise by several times. All right, this is Elder Tianyong. This is Elder Mo Qing. Just as Lin Yi was having a headache about points, Murong Ning introduced the remaining few elders to Lin Yi and Qingyu. Those few elders were rather polite to Lin Yi and Qing Yu. This made them surprised. No matter how stunning their performance was, they were ultimately disciples. Those few elders' reactions seemed to be a little too obvious. After a moment, Tianyong, Mo Qing, and the rest of the elders left. Before leaving, they even invited Lin Yi and Qing Yu, two people, to go to the place they were at, and used holy artifacts exclusive to divine perception saints, or cultivation methods, martial techniques to tempt them. Hearing that, Lin Yi and Qing Yu, two people, both became excited. Martial Dao-related holy artifacts, cultivation methods, and martial techniques were all very common. They did not value them. But if it was exclusive to divine perception saints, then it was much rarer. Even Lin Yi was moved. After the elders left, many students turned their gazes to Murong Ning one after another. At this time, less than 4 hours had passed. There were still 2 hours. It was enough for some people to temper their own divine perception power. The majority of them were martial artists and did not cultivate divine perception power. The reason why they came to the heart-refining abyss was merely in order to temper their will, letting them unleash even stronger martial Dao power. One should not look at how martial Dao and divine perception were two different cultivation systems. There were 3,000 great Dao in the world, all different paths leading to the same destination. There was always an effect of supplementing each other. Cough, cough. Sensing the crowd's gaze, Murong Ning's face was slightly embarrassed. He coughed and said, Students, I'm really sorry. Today, there is a riot in the heart-refining abyss, and it cannot be opened. In addition, as there are too many new students this year, there are more than 10,000 people who have to experience the heart-refining abyss within 3 days. Within these 3 days, it is very likely that the heart-refining abyss will not be open to you. Is this a scam? I am just short of divine perception power to break through to the later stage of the saint level. It is actually delayed for 3 days? Damn new students! Why are there so many new students this year? Wasn't there less than 1,000 people in the previous years? As the voice fell, many of the older students sighed helplessly and immediately left. After 3 days, you can come to the heart-refining abyss whenever you want. After the older students left, Murong Ning said to Lin Yi and the other new students, the heart-refining abyss does not consume much normally. It only costs 500 points for 2 hours. Gulp. When the new students heard the heart-refining abyss again, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva and their faces were filled with fear. The pain that they had suffered earlier made them want to retreat in their hearts. Everyone, don't worry. Sensing the hesitation of the new students, Murong Ning immediately laughed and said, after passing the test of the heart-refining abyss, you will develop an antibody to the divine perception power. Moreover, other than the core area, the divine perception power in the other areas is not very strong. It will adjust its power according to your strength, tempering you without hurting you. The heart-refining abyss is your future paradise. The reason why Sibu Gakuin is stronger than the other 3 forces is because of the heart-refining abyss. It allows each of our students to unleash their strength to the extreme. Chapter 489. Since the heart-refining abyss could not be opened, Lin Yi bade farewell to the elders and left with Shangwan Yunqi and the rest. After exiting the teleportation formation, Qingwei followed behind Lin Yi. After a long while, Lin Yi suddenly asked, You're a divine will saint? That's right, Qingwei said indifferently. Aren't you one too? If I knew you were so strong, I wouldn't have used so many trump cards that time. Lin Yi pursed his lips. You even wasted 1,000,000 points to buy the formation scroll. You didn't ask me again? Qingwei shrugged and suddenly smiled. Aren't you the same? Have you been hiding it? Are you pretending to be weak? The corner of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi asked again, May I ask, what cultivation technique do you practice? Earlier in the heart-refining abyss, Lin Yi felt that Qingyue's divine, aura was quite strange and was curious. Hearing this, Qingwe looked at Lin Yi with rapt attention. Since you know it's a presumptuous question, then don't ask. With that, Qingwe ignored Lin Yi and left alone. Even though Lin Yi was curious, it was not good for him to chase after her and ask again. After all, everyone's cultivation technique was a secret. Back at his residence, Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul were both cultivating. After coming to Cebu Gakuin, Sun Wuyu was not weak, but Silent Soul did not want to be a burden to Lin Yi and cultivated hard. Coincidentally, there was a saint-level spirit gathering formation in this courtyard, so they naturally cultivated hard. Lin Yi did not disturb the two. After tidying up, he summoned the Sky Pagoda and brought the two into the ninefold space. This time, the divine will tempering in the heart, refining abyss had also greatly improved him. Not only did it deepen his understanding of his divine will, but it also strengthened his physique a little. Even if Lin Yi did not use his divine thoughts or his supreme sacred weapon, an ordinary early stage saint might not be a match for him. In particular, Lin Yi discovered that the power of spiritual force could actually merge with his physique, allowing both to improve at the same time. After noticing this, Lin Yi gave up on the idea of breaking through quickly. He intended to raise his physique and divine sense to the limit and lay a good foundation before breaking through to the saint stage. With the assistance of the ascending dragon transformation, the divine dragon 9 transformations had already been raised to the nirvana divine dragon realm. However, Lin Yi was sure that the nirvana divine dragon realm was not the peak that he could reach right now. This breakthrough, his goal was to cultivate the ascending dragon transformation and the divine dragon 9 transformations to the extreme. 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. In this half a year, Lin Yi's physique had been greatly strengthened. Even if he didn't use his divine sense, he could exude a strong, holy aura with just a raise of his hand. He exited the ninefold space and released Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul. Captain, young master. Seeing Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul hurriedly saluted. This time, not only Lin Yi, but Silent Soul's strength had also increased greatly. His cultivation had risen to the 4th tribulation half-true saint, and the power of his domain surged within his body. Good progress. With a faint smile, Lin Yi stood up and said, "Let's go and see how the food here is. It looks pretty good." Silent Soul blinked his eyes and suddenly asked, "Captain, do you want me to call Miss Qingwe?" Hearing this, Lin Yi's expression stiffened. Originally, he wanted to know more about Qingwe, but after Qingwe's identity as a saint was revealed, Lin Yi actually had a special feeling about her, which made him feel very uncomfortable. "No need, we'll go by ourselves. While we're at it, we'll also go to the Saint Depository Pavilion and see if there's anything suitable for you." After improving his divine sense, Lin Yi wanted to consult Chun Daoxian on how to continue improving his strength without cultivating other divine sense cultivation techniques. After all, it would take a long time to obtain the second scroll of the 3,000 heavenly Tao. During this time, Lin Yi couldn't stop cultivating his divine sense. After finishing their cultivation, Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and Silent Soul were about to leave when a clamor suddenly sounded. "Brother Lin, Brother Lin." The voice was urgent. Lin Yi and the others were shocked, but they were puzzled. "Strange, why are Shangguan and the others here?" Frowning slightly, Lin Yi recognized Shangguan Yunqi's voice and hurriedly went out and opened the courtyard's protective formation. Just as he stepped out, Lin Yi was stunned and revealed a shocked expression. Dozens of people rushed in and blocked Lin Yi's path. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others were fine. But behind them, everyone's faces were swollen and bruised, their faces filled with anger. "What's going on?" Frowning, Lin Yi immediately asked, "Did someone bully you? Isn't fighting prohibited in the academy?" It's true that fighting is prohibited, but if you don't use spiritual power, as long as the elders don't intervene, it's fine. Shangguan Yunqi revealed a bitter smile. This time, that group of seniors is really too much. And that elder, he actually allowed the seniors to bully us. Yeah, That elder is still helping the seniors and doesn't care about us." As soon as he finished speaking, the people behind him shouted angrily, their words full of dissatisfaction towards the elder. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. It seemed that even within the academy, these fights were inevitable. "Brother Lin Yi, hurry and help us." Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted. Following this voice, everyone shouted, asking for Lin Yi's help. Even Shangwan Yunqi and the others looked at Lin Yi with hope. "Brother Lin, there's a late-stage saint among them, an expert close to the peak of the saint realm. We're no match for him." Shangwan Yunqi said in a deep voice, "The rest are not a problem, but that guy, only you can deal with him." No matter how talented Shangwan Yunqi and the others were, their cultivation time was too short. They couldn't compete with a peak saint, even if they had just touched the threshold of the peak saint realm. Therefore, they could only pin their hopes on Lin Yi. "Okay, take me there." Lin Yi waved his hand and walked up to Shangwan Yunqi. He patted Shangwan Yunqi's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "We're all freshmen. I won't let those seniors bully us. Brother Lin is mighty." In an instant, everyone was ecstatic and immediately rushed to the refining heart abyss with Lin Yi and the other two. On the way, Shangwan Yunqi told them everything in detail. It turned out that when the news of the hunting war reached the seniors, they were quite angry and felt that they had lost face. Coincidentally, in these few days, the freshmen would go to the refining heart abyss one after another to experience it. Therefore, some of the seniors joined forces and found a few elders who were on good terms with them to go to the refining heart abyss together. They were prepared to take the freshmen down a notch and extort some points from them. In the beginning, in order to avoid fighting, the freshmen swallowed their anger and paid some so-called protection fees. However, with this beginning, the rest of the seniors asked them for points in the name of different forces. Chapter 490. After knowing the ins and outs of the matter, Lin Yi's face immediately turned gloomy. The cause of this incident was the hunting war. After the senior students failed in the hunting war, they felt ashamed and targeted the freshmen. In addition, some elders added fuel to the fire, and the situation developed to this point. After figuring it out, Lin Yi immediately sped up and rushed to the teleportation spell. If he was late, some of the freshmen would be provoked to gamble in the blood refinement field. That would be troublesome. In front of the heart refining abyss, no matter how they fought, they would be fine. At most, they would suffer some physical pain and would not even be injured. However, if they were in the blood refinement field, losing points was a small matter. They might have to recuperate for a few months. After running at full speed, Lin Yi and the others arrived at the heart refining abyss in less than 15 minutes. At this moment, thousands of people had gathered at the heart refining abyss. The number of senior students was originally small, but there were more of them than the freshmen. It was a mighty scene. So many people. Lin Yi sucked in a breath of cold air, and the corner of his mouth twitched. If a fight broke out, the entire outer court would go crazy. At this moment, Lin Yi could not help but be curious. Did the elders not come out to take care of this? Were they not worried about a fight at all? TSK. At this time, you still haven't handed in your points? This is the rule. Every year, the freshmen have to hand in their points when they arrive. Bah! Don't think that we don't know that the rule is that we only have to hand in our points once. A freshman roared. We have already handed in our points twice. If you want points, go and find them. Why we have to find them? Aren't the freshmen very powerful this year? You got quite a lot of points in the hunting war and even defeated the senior students. The rules should be special for you. Ha ha ha. That's right. The rules should be special for you. In an instant, all the older students began to laugh loudly. Their eyes were filled with disdain as they looked at the new students. The freshmen were furious. They were surrounded in the middle and clenched their fists. However, they didn't dare to make a move. Due to the fact that the freshmen had come to the heart refining abyss in batches and that the time was not up yet, some of the freshmen had not come. Some of the freshmen who had sided with the older students or were related to the older students had gone to the older student side. The number of freshmen was rather small, only about 2,000 people. Their strength was not as strong as the older students. So how could they dare to fight against them? Even if he couldn't use his spiritual power, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be injured. Ha ha, weren't you very arrogant earlier? I've heard that there are people who think that this year will be the year of the new students. Several figures stood in front of the crowd and looked at the many senior students with disdain. Why is it that even now you don't dare to make sound? By the way, I heard that the strongest among you are called Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi. At a time like this, those people still want to be cowards? Bah! Many of the new students sneered and looked at the older students with eyes full of anger. If it weren't for Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi, their points would have been stolen and they wouldn't have been able to pass the hunting war. Therefore, when they heard the older students insulting Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi, they were very angry. When Brother Lin Yi comes, I hope you can still be so arrogant. Aren't you afraid that the elder will punish you for doing this? Ha ha! Punishment? Why would he punish us? We didn't do anything against the rules. We didn't bully you. Many of the older students laughed. You don't agree? If you don't agree, we'll wait for you at the blood refining field at any time. And that Lin Yi, I'll wait for him here. When he comes, I'll teach him a good lesson. Humph! The older students who were selected to participate in the hunting war are not strong. It's just to train you. What's there to be arrogant about defeating them? As the voice fell, some of the older students who participated in the hunting war twitched the corners of their mouths and revealed bitter smiles. Bastard! A bunch of bastards! Many of the new students gritted their teeth. Some of the more hot-tempered ones had already rushed out and glared at the older students. They cannot wait to have a bet with the blood refining field. Ha ha ha, angry! Seeing the angry expressions of the new students, the older students laughed wildly and immediately continued to coerce the new students. Hurry up and hand over your points. If you don't hand over your points, don't blame us for taking action. Even if you can't use your spiritual energy or your holy aura, it's enough for you to rest for a few days. The older students sneered and looked at the new students with interest. Seeing the older students' ferocious smiles, as if they were lambs waiting to be slaughtered, the new students were enraged and flames of anger surged in their eyes. Don't even think about it. Abruptly, an indifferent voice sounded. Although the voice was calm, it was like a sudden clap of thunder that suddenly reverberated in everyone's ears. From today onwards, the new students will not give you any points. As the voice fell, many of the older students were surprised. They raised their eyebrows and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a group of more than a dozen people slowly walking over from afar. The people in the lead were Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others. Sun Wuyu and Shangguan Yunqi looked solemn as they released their holy aura, shocking everyone. Although the two of them were in the mid-stage Saint Realm, their momentum was no weaker than a late-stage Saint Realm expert. This stunned many of the older students. What shocked the older students even more was the person in the lead, who was merely a Ninth Tribulation half-true saint. Ninth Tribulation half-true saint? That's Lin Yi? Didn't they say that Lin Yi is only a Seventh Tribulation half-true saint? How did he break through to the Ninth Tribulation half-true saint realm in just 2 days? The older students who had participated in the hunting war exposed Lin Yi's news. Therefore, when they saw Lin Yi, they were stunned. Less than 2 days after the hunting war ended, Lin Yi had actually broken through to the Ninth Tribulation half-true saint realm, shocking them. In an instant, many of the older students took a few steps back. The older students surrounding the new students also couldn't help but open up a path for Lin Yi and the others. Big Brother Lin is here. Big Brother Lin, Big Brother Shangguan, and the others are here. Ha ha, this is great. There's hope for us. Many of the new students were ecstatic, and they hurried to welcome Lin Yi's group. On the other hand, the older students were the complete opposite. Seniors, today is the day we new students pass the heart-refining Abysses test. It's better if you don't delay us. Lin Yi walked to the front of the group and looked at the older student in the lead. His expression was indifferent as he said, "If you delay us, Elder Morong might not let you off. Hiss. Many of the older students couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air after hearing his words. Morong Ning was an elder with real power. He was impartial, and their relationship was not good. If Morong Ning came, he would definitely punish them. In an instant, the older students hesitated. Chapter 491. Trash. Suddenly, a shout sounded. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others were surprised. They looked up and saw a figure slowly walking out from the senior students. His blue robe fluttered without wind. His face was solemn, and his eyes were cold. He gave off a strong sense of oppression. It was a young man. He did not look much older than Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others. His body was weak, but the power contained in his body was like thunder. Peak late-stage saint. Shangguan Yunqi and the others looked solemn when they felt that person's aura. Lin Yi also exhaled heavily. Senior Zhu. Senior Zhu is here too. Phew, we don't have to be afraid of that guy. Senior Zhu is an expert ranked 45th on the saint transforming list. Isn't it more than enough to deal with a freshman? Seeing that figure, the senior students relaxed a lot, and their faces were full of smiles. Boss, I'm sorry. The leading student's face was filled with guilt. The hearts of the freshmen sank when they saw this scene. The 45th on the saint transforming list sounded very powerful. Although they knew that Lin Yi was powerful, they were not sure if Lin Yi could defeat those famous experts in the academy. Zhu Mingyong ignored the others and stared at Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others. You're Lin Yi? Zhu Mingyong's voice was indifferent. You know, Lin Yi's face was also cold. Zhu Mingyong sneered. Kid, you've got guts. Looks like you really want to be the one to stand out. What do you mean by standing out? Lin Yi said indifferently. I didn't want to fight, but you've gone too far. What do you mean by going too far? We're teaching you how to treat your seniors. That's right, so that you freshmen won't be so arrogant. Some of the senior students shouted coldly. Zhu Mingyong said indifferently. Going too far? You're the one who slapped our faces first. Oh, did we slap your face? Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi suddenly laughed. I'd like to hear the details. In the past several hundred years, why hasn't any of the new students defeated the old students? Do you really think that it's because they're not talented enough and that they're not strong enough? Zhu Mingyong said indifferently. It's because they understand that the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. What a joke. Hearing Zhu Mingyong's words, Lin Yi immediately laughed out loud. If it's really as you say, then I can only say that the previous students were all trash. He clearly has the strength, but he's afraid and deliberately loses to others. His mentality and attitude have already determined that he can't become a true expert. What did you say? Zhu Mingyong's face darkened as he glared at Lin Yi. As cultivators, we should be fearless and defy the heavens. What a coward. You're simply a disgrace to us martial cultivators. Lin Yi took a step forward, and his entire body suddenly grew taller like a mountain. Together with his words, it shook the hearts of many seniors. *MN, this guy. Zhu Mingyong's face was gloomy and extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and wanted to bite Lin Yi to death. Sharp-tongued brat, Zhu Mingyong shouted. No matter what you say today, if you don't give us an explanation today, don't even think about staying in the academy in the future. Interesting, Lin Yi sneered and said, I led the new students to defeat the old students, and I still have to give you an explanation. Don't you know? Face isn't given by others. It's earned by oneself. It's really despicable for all of you to be like this. Bastard. Zhu Mingyong gritted his teeth. Lin Yi, don't think that you can be arrogant in Cebu Gakuen just because you've defeated a few seniors. Haha, at least I've defeated someone who can enter the inner yard, but you're still showing off in the outer yard. Lin Yi glanced at Zhu Mingyong playfully. Ha ha. TSK. If you're so powerful, why don't you enter the inner yard? In an instant, many of the new students burst into laughter. Zhu Mingyong's blood rushed to his head, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was like a pig's liver, purplish red. Not entering the inner yard had always been his weakness. Every year, the 50 spots would be taken by the new students or the dark horses among the old students. He occupied the top 50 spots on the Sage Transformation leaderboard, but he had not been able to enter the inner yard several times in a row. He had long been infuriated, and now that he was provoked by the new students, he could no longer suppress his anger. "You're all courting death." Amidst the violent roar, a surging sage aura surged wildly. Zhu Mingyong's body floated in the air, and his body was filled with spiritual energy fluctuations. He was like a god, staring at Lin Yi and the others. The surging power was like a wave, rolling down. Bang! The power was biting cold, and it pressed down on everyone, making them feel suffocated. "Oomph, you want to fight because you're unreasonable?" With a cold snort, Lin Ye's mind moved slightly, and the 5 elements territory appeared. The colorful territory suddenly burst out with strange fluctuations, and all the sage aura in the air was eliminated. As expected, squinting slightly, Zhu Mingyong was not surprised. Lin Yi was a genius who led the new students to defeat the old students. He would be surprised if he could not neutralize his attack. He raised his hands, and flames suddenly appeared. The blazing fire turned into 2 long swords, and the raging fire burned everyone. Lin Yi looked up, and the corner of his mouth curled up, revealing a disdainful smile. "TSK, TSK. If you're not afraid of breaking the rules, then go ahead." Feeling Lin Ye's disdain, Zhu Mingyong was enraged. With a loud bang, he attacked. The 2 flaming long swords were raised high, and with a biting cold sword aura, he chopped down with a loud bang. "Oh no, Brother Lin, be careful." Seeing this scene, many of the new students exclaimed. Lin Yi was not afraid. He did not react, and only stared coldly at Zhu Mingyong. He was betting. He was betting that the elders were actually very concerned about what was happening here. Ha ha ha. This kid actually stopped moving. Could it be that he's scared silly? The old students laughed wildly and stared excitedly at the 2 flaming sword auras, which slashed towards Lin Yi. Zhu Mingyong frowned slightly and became nervous. Suddenly, an ominous premonition appeared in his heart. Wong. Almost at the moment when the flaming sword auras were about to fall on Lin Ye's head, an invisible wave quietly spread out. Puchi. The flaming sword auras dissipated, and Lin Ye's expression was indifferent as he looked at Zhu Mingyong. Lin Ye had made the right bet. The academy did not let them be presumptuous, and would control everything within the rules. The biting cold shout suddenly fell, and like a clap of thunder, it reverberated in the entire space. Chapter 492. I haven't seen you for a year, and all of you have grown. As the piercingly cold voice fell, Zhu Mingyong suddenly felt a chill all over his body. He couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. He was terrified in his heart. The rest of the seniors were terrified and did not dare to lift their heads. In the air, a figure appeared quietly as if he had walked out of thin air. Elder Morong. Lin Yi bowed and smiled. "You brat." Morong Ning looked at Lin Yi and saw that Lin Yi was not flustered at all. He smiled and said, "Are you so sure that I will come out? I believe that Elder will not watch others break the rules." Lin Yi smiled and said, "Cebu Gakuen has its reasons for being able to stand for so many years." "Great." Morong Ning nodded, feeling more and more satisfied with Lin Yi. If it were not for the fact that he did not cultivate divine thought, he would have the urge to take Lin Yi as his disciple. In the college, Lin Yi and the rest of the students were his students. Although he was teaching them, he would not reveal his trump cards. However, if he were to take in disciples, he would teach them everything he knew. Elder Morong. Greetings, Elder Morong. Near the heart-refining abyss, all the students, regardless of whether they were freshmen or seniors, bowed. Cough, cough. In the void, a few more figures appeared. They were either old men with white beards or middle-aged men. All of them exuded an imposing aura. Obviously, Those figures were the elders of the college. Murong Ning ignored the students and stared at the elders. He said in a low voice, "You guys are just watching from the side. Are you not going to stop him?" Cough, cough. The elders looked at each other and replied, "Mingyong knows what he is doing." Knows what he is doing? Heh, if I had not intervened, he would have been chased out. Murong Ning's face darkened. This is what you call knowing what he is doing? Hearing this, the elders suddenly felt the pressure and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. We thought that Lin Yi would defend himself. Ha! Think. Murong Ning suddenly shouted. Then why don't you think that he's strong enough to ignore your attacks? Why don't you do it yourself? Others take the rules to heart and won't fight with others in the academy. What about you guys? You guys are still seniors. At this point, Murong Ning turned around and looked at the senior students with a cold glint in his eyes. Being stared at by Murong like this, the older students felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They only felt their bodies turn cold and shivered. Even Zhu Mingyong found it hard to breathe. His heart was filled with terror. Even if it was just a look from a heavenly saint powerhouse, they would not be able to withstand it. You students wouldn't dare to be so bold. Suddenly, Murong Ning's voice softened. His gaze once again turned to the elders. Could it be that an elder ordered you to do this? As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the elders changed greatly. No, my lord, enlightened. Several elders quickly flew in front of Murong Ning. Their foreheads were full of sweat, but they didn't dare to wipe it off. They hurriedly begged for mercy. Sir, we really didn't. We just thought that this year's new students were a little arrogant. So, a little arrogant? The corner of Murong Ning's mouth twitched. He gently sighed and pointed at Lin Yi. This little guy is arrogant? In my opinion, he knows how to respect people better than those seniors and you guys. Is this heart refining abyss your territory? Have you ever told me that you came here? The elders opened their mouths to speak, but they didn't know what to say. After all, they had really ignored the rules and came to the area under Murong Ning's control. What made them even more depressed was that Murong Ning was an authoritative figure among the elders. His strength was heaven-defying. Originally, they thought that Murong Ning wouldn't interfere in such a small matter. After all, it was just bullying the new students. This kind of thing happened often in the past. However, they didn't expect that Murong Ning thought highly of Lin Yi. Now that he was bullying the new students in his territory, he would definitely not stand by and watch. What about me? Murong Ning sneered. Why aren't you getting lost? Hearing this, the elders didn't dare to say anything else. They immediately turned around and left quickly. As for the seniors, they didn't even look at them. It was as if they didn't know them. Elder. Seeing that the elders had left, Zhu Mingyong and the other seniors panicked and almost cried. However, the elders quickly disappeared from their sight. After the elders left, Murong Ning turned his gaze to Zhu Mingyong and the others. In an instant, all the pressure fell on them. They trembled and didn't dare to speak. Seeing that it's your first offense, I'll let you off. After muttering to himself, Murong Ning didn't lay his hands on Zhu Mingyong and the others. Zhu Mingyong was a powerhouse in the top 50 of the outer court sane transformation list. If he were to expel him, the price would be too great. Thank you, Elder. Zhu Mingyong and the others let out a long sigh of relief. As long as Murong Ning didn't punish them, they would be fine. I won't interfere in the matters between you students. Murong Ning placed his hands behind his back and said indifferently, there's only one thing. Don't fight among yourselves. If there's a grudge that needs to be settled, please come to the blood refining ground. The blood refining ground will always welcome you. If you sign a life and death agreement, even if you die, no one will say anything. As soon as he finished speaking, Murong Ning's body was like a wisp of smoke. With a whoosh, he dissipated in front of everyone. This kind of strength caused everyone to be extremely shocked. Soon after, the gazes of the seniors when they looked at Lin Yi and the others became strange. The space was silent. Lin Yi looked at Zhu Mingyong indifferently. After a moment, Zhu Mingyong's eyes turned and looked around. After discovering that Murong Ning had really left, his expression relaxed. Only then did he look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi, since you're so arrogant, do you dare to have a bet with me? If you want to fight, then let's fight. Lin Yi was happy and fearless. Say it. What are we betting on? If you lose, hand over all the points you obtained from the seniors in the hunting war. Okay, what if you lose? Lin Yi did not hesitate at all and directly agreed. Frowning slightly, Zhu Mingyong panicked and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. If I lose, we, the members of White Cloud Summit, will no longer harass you freshmen. It's that simple. Lin Yi said indifferently. The points we obtained from the seniors were obtained with great difficulty. You took them away so easily, but it's that simple if you lose? Then what do you say? It's very simple. If you lose, you're not allowed to harass us freshmen. Similarly, give me all the points you have. Of course, if I lose, the points I have, including the points I obtained from other places, will all be given to you. This. Chapter 493. All right, I agree. After a moment of hesitation, Zhu Mingyong agreed. His fists were tightly clenched, and his heart was filled with nervousness. Zhu Mingyong understood that Lin, you must have a trump card since he dared to make such a bet. However, he also had a trump card, and his strength was definitely not what it appeared to be on the surface. Therefore, under the temptation of a huge amount of points, Zhu Mingyong decided to take a gamble. 5 days later, we'll go to the blood refinement ground for a battle to the death. Zhu Mingyong barked. Previously, he had been in a passive state, allowing Lin Yi to seize the initiative. Therefore, he wanted to snatch the initiative back. 5 days. Lin Yi sneered. Too long. The day after tomorrow. Coincidentally, I'm going to have a battle with the flying snow gates Du Yuetian. Why don't you all come together? What? The corner of Zhu Mingyong's mouth twitched, and he stared at Lin Yi in shock. The rest of the old and new students looked at Lin Yi in shock. Although the new students didn't know who Du Yuetian was, they could tell that Du Yuetian's strength wasn't weak from the old students' expressions. Du Yuetian is also one of the top 100 experts on the Transforming Saint list, a peak late-stage true saint. There's not much difference between him and a peak true saint. Could it be that this new student is crazy? He actually dares to challenge 2 top 100 experts on the Transforming Saint list in one day? In my opinion, he's courting death. Many of the old students discussed in low voices, but none of them believed in Lin Yi. They felt that Lin Yi might still have a chance to win if they were to fight 2 people separately. But Lin Yi, a 9th Tribulation half-true saint, had challenged 2 peak true saints consecutively. This was something they couldn't believe. Do you agree or not? Lin Yi looked at Zhu Mingyong indifferently, and he clearly didn't put him in his eyes. I agree. Zhu Mingyong took a deep breath, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Since you're so eager to give me your points, how can I refuse? Ha ha ha! Lin Yi roared with laughter. I'll wait for you at the blood refinement ground the day after tomorrow. Today, you can return to where you came from. Zhu Mingyong snorted coldly when he heard this, and he immediately waved his hand to instruct the senior students to disperse. Since you insist on standing out, I'll fulfill your wish. Brothers, let's go. Zhu Mingyong and the others came quickly and left quickly as well. Soon, they were far away from the heart refining abyss. Just now, Murong Ning had scared them, so they didn't dare to be presumptuous here. Moreover, it was close to noon, and the heart refining abyss was about to open. If Elder Murong Ning came out and saw that they were still here, he might get angry. After the seniors left, Shangwan Yinqi and the rest finally breathed a sigh of relief. The person said with a grin, how can it be so easy to break through to the peak saint realm? The top 20 are almost half a step into the peak saint realm. Only the top 10 were at the peak of the saint realm. Of course, the inner yard selection hasn't started yet, so some people must be hiding their strength. Hearing this, Lin Yi, Shangwan Yinqi, Muyi and the rest immediately turned their heads and looked at the person who answered the question. It was a young man. His strength wasn't weak. He was an early-stage saint, and his aura was no weaker than an ordinary middle-stage saint. You are? You know so much about Sibu Gakuin? Shangguan Yun Qi immediately asked. My elder brother is a disciple of Sibu Gakuin. He also fought his way from the outer yard to the inner yard, so I know more about this situation. White Cloud's Peak has existed for decades. My elder brother once told me about them. I remember that their leader was Mu Jinyu, a late-stage saint. I don't know how he is now. By the way, my name is Tang Linkong. Tang Linkong suddenly asked, Brother Lin, I wonder if you have any intention of establishing a force. If you come forward, I can guarantee that most of the new students will join us. In this way, with our strength, those seniors won't dare to bully us easily. The reason why they dare to bully us now is because we can't unite. If we establish a force, then it's not necessarily the case. Establish a force? Chapter 494. That's right. Tang Linkong said in a low voice, whether it's the outer yard or the inner yard, there are intricate and complicated forces. Unless a person is extremely powerful, it's very difficult to be a lone ranger. Although the Academy has many treasured places for us to cultivate and refine our bodies. But whether it's the heart-refining abyss or the heavenly thunder realm, the cultivation environment is different. Those who are more powerful will naturally be able to obtain good cultivation conditions. But if they're slightly weaker, even if they're lucky enough to find a good cultivation environment, it will still be snatched away by others. Although the Academy clearly states that fighting is not allowed, as long as you don't use your saint power, you won't mind. Or rather, as long as the elders don't care, no one will care. Today, Zhu Mingyong and the rest dared to make a move because they had the elders' support. Therefore, those who are not powerful enough will need to join a team or force if they want to obtain good cultivation conditions. Hearing this, Lin Yi nodded slightly and did not object. What Tang Linkong said was indeed in line with the survival of humans. In this world where the strong were respected, one had to be powerful or have a force behind them. Otherwise, one would not be able to obtain anything. Brother Lin, you and Brother Shangguan are extremely talented. You just entered the academy and can already compete with the seniors. With your strength, you can form a strong force. But 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. If there are too many people from other forces, it's easy to be tripped up when you go out on a mission. So, Tang Linkong said slowly, I think Brother Lin needs to form a force and rope in all the new students. At this time, you just led us to defeat the seniors and defended us today. With your current reputation, you can definitely rope them in. Of course, if Brother Lin doesn't have the intention to form a force, then you don't have to think about this. Just be a lone ranger. But in that case, you won't be able to obtain too many resources. Lin Yi touched his nose and began to think about the situation of forming a force. Just as Tang Linkong said, if Lin Yi wanted to be a lone ranger, he naturally did not have to worry about this. But if he wanted to obtain more resources and information, this was very necessary. Big Brother Lin Yi, if you have such thoughts, you have to hurry up, Tang Linkong said in a deep voice. Generally speaking, when freshmen enter the outer court, the older students will quickly rope in the freshmen to join their forces. Don't be fooled by the fact that they're attacking us now. They'll try to rope in some of the ordinary freshmen instead. If more time passes, I'm afraid those new students will all be taken away. Moreover, if Big Brother Lin were to establish a force, it would be more united if all the freshmen were to join it. I have to say, you are very eloquent. Lin Yi smiled and asked, Then how many freshmen can you contact? Hee hee. Seeing that Lin Yi had agreed, Tang Linkong immediately laughed and hurriedly said, A total of over 10,000 new students. I can rope in around 3,000 to 4,000 people. Not even half. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and looked at Tang Linkong in confusion. Shangguan Yunqi and the others also looked at Tang Linkong in surprise. If there are as many as I said, I'll be thanking the gods. Tang Lincoln smiled bitterly and said, many of the freshmen will not choose to join us, but will follow the older students. There are also some freshmen who will be lone rangers and will not join any forces. Almost every year, there will be less than half of the number of lone rangers. Although the total number has increased this year, the proportion will not change. I estimate that there will be at least 4,000 people who will choose to be lone rangers. Moreover, most of the forces only have a few hundred disciples. Forces with more than 1,000 members are almost all the top sects in the outer court. The Saint Transforming Board has the names of these sects. Hearing this, Lin Yi, Shangwan Yunqi, and the others could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Could it be that the people who came today are all members of White Cloud Summit? Lin Yi frowned and suddenly asked, are they very strong? They have so many members. Not at all. Tang Lincoln shook his head and said, among them, there are only a little more than 1,000 members of White Cloud Summit. The rest are from other forces or lone rangers who were lured by them with benefits. After all, this time, there are elders with them. With elders around, they can mobilize many people. Speaking of elders, I'm very curious. Why are those elders so afraid of Elder Morongning? Lin Yi suddenly asked, could it be that there is a difference in level between the elders? Of course. Shangwan Yunqi grinned and said, everywhere, there's a difference in level. Cebu Gakuin is the same. That's right, Tang Lincoln said. The elders who guard the sacred depository, Heavenly Thunder Realm, Heart Refining Abyss, Fire Cloud Arena, and Pill Pavilion have a higher status than the other elders. Their strength is also higher. Moreover, in each area, there's an elder who is in charge and a few other elders who assist him. The elders with real power are the ones we need to pay attention to. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi suddenly asked, do any of you know Elder Chen Daoxian? Chen Daoxian? Hearing this name, Shangwan Yunqi and the others were stunned. Their brows furrowed. This name is so unfamiliar. Big Brother has never told me before. Me too. I've never heard of it. Shangwan Yunqi and Tang Lincoln shook their heads. Lin Yi's heart sank. He could not help but suspect Chun Daoxuan's identity. However, Theta Scarabii was an elder with real power in the inner court. He knew Chun Daoxian and valued him so much. It should not be fake. Big Brother Lin Yi, do you want to create a force? Tang Lincoln looked at Lin Yi with hope. Shangwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others said softly, let's do it. Since we are all freshmen and coincidentally encountered a reform, we can work together. Not only them, but the surrounding freshmen who heard their conversation also looked at Lin Yi nervously, waiting for Lin Yi's answer. Okay. Hearing this, Lin Yi nodded and immediately agreed. Since everyone thinks so highly of me, then I will create a force with everyone. I hope that everyone can work together to bring this force to greater heights so that we can have a better life in the academy. Big Brother Lin is mighty. Ha ha! Senior Brother Lin is mighty. Hearing Lin Yi's words, the freshmen who were full of anticipation cheered excitedly. Having an organization was much safer than having one person. Tang Lincoln, Shangwan Yunqi, and the others looked at each other and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Boss, give our force a name. Tang Lincoln smiled and changed the way he addressed Lin Yi. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed. He pondered and said, if it's a name, let's just call it Heavenly Sword. Heavenly Sword is the sword of heaven. It is incomparably sharp. I hope that everyone can be like a sharp blade, fearless and unstoppable, soaring to the sky. Chapter 495. Brother Lin, I really admire you. We just decided on the name of the force, and you actually ran away, leaving Sun Wuyu, Mu Yi, and the others to do nothing. After so many years, this is the first time I've met someone as irresponsible as you. After a faint sigh, Shangwan Yunqi pursed his lips and looked at Lin Yi. With Sun Wuyu, Mu Yi, and the others' abilities plus Tang Lincoln, they can definitely handle those things. Lin Yi smiled and said, Besides, it's almost noon, and they still have to enter the heart-refining abyss. We've already passed the assessment, so what are we waiting for? Fine, you have a reason. Shangguan Yunqi smiled bitterly. How come I haven't seen Dao Feiyang today? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to call Dao Feiyang to take a look at the blood-refining ground, but he didn't expect Dao Feiyang to run away. I don't know. Shangguan Yunqi shook his head. That guy is so mysterious. Maybe he's researching something. All right, Brother Lin, where are you going? Shangguan Yunqi raised his head and looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. I originally wanted to call Dao Feiyang to take a look at the blood-refining ground and test the waters. Since Dao Feiyang isn't here, I'll go to the Hidden Saint Pavilion and pay a visit to an elder. Lin Yi rubbed his nose and immediately rushed in the direction of the teleportation array. The blood-refining ground was not too far from the heart-refining abyss, but the Hidden Saint Pavilion required the use of the transmission array. Oh, Shangguan Yunqi said in surprise. You met an elder of the Hidden Saint Pavilion? How come I heard that the elders only appear when exchanging for peerless saint rank items? Could it be that you already have enough points to exchange for a peerless saint rank item? How many points did you spend? Hearing this, Lin Yi finally realized that something was wrong. According to Shangguan Yunqi, the elders of the Hidden Saint Pavilion would only appear when exchanging for saint rank items. But he met Chun Daoxian on the 11th floor of the Hidden Saint Pavilion. The elder I met was that Chun Daoxian. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Yi immediately told Shangguan Yunqi about Chun Daoxuan's existence. He's been on the 11th floor of the Sacred Depository Pavilion. He's blind and sweeps the floor silently, but his divine sense is very strong. 11th floor? Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi's jaw dropped as he stared at Lin Yi in shock, unable to say anything for a long time. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi was shocked. He narrowed his eyes and asked, What's wrong? Could it be that there's no such elder? I'm not sure if there is such an elder. Swallowing hard, Shangguan Yunqi murmured, but the Saint Depository Pavilion only has 10 floors. The first 9 floors were for the exchange of low-grade, high-grade, peerless, and other treasures. The 10th level is the resting place of the elders. Ordinary people are unable to ascend. What? Only 10 levels? Hearing this, Lin Yi froze on the spot as if he was struck by lightning. If the Saint Depository Pavilion only had 10 floors, then how did he get to the 11th floor? Was Chun Daoxian a human or a ghost? Hiss! Elder Theta Scarabii can sense the saint badge that Chun Daoxian gave me. If Chun Daoxian really doesn't exist, then other people shouldn't be able to see the saint badge. With this thought, Lin Yi immediately took out the saint badge. A purple brilliance flashed, emitting a strange aura. This is... Suddenly feeling the light of the saint badge, Shangguan Yunqi immediately closed his eyes. The thought of surrendering surfaced in his mind, and he actually had the urge to kneel down and worship it. Could this be the saint badge? Without waiting for Lin Yi to ask, Shangguan Yunqi blurted out, That's impossible. Isn't it said that only a few prodigies, monsters, and peak powerhouses who have surpassed the great saint stage in the inner court possess a saint token? Why do you have a saint badge? Huff, Lin Yi said softly. This saint badge was given to me by that elder. If he has the saint badge, then he must be an elder, and his position is not low. Shangguan Yunqi frowned, his heart full of doubts. But why would an elder like that stay in the outer yard? And he's actually on the 11th floor of the Hidden Saint Pavilion. This is really strange. For so many years, many of our disciples who entered Cebu Gakuen have spread the news that the Hidden Saint Pavilion only has 10 floors. Suddenly, an 11th floor appeared. This is really shocking. Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi also wanted to find out more about Chun Daoxian. Immediately, he said, Brother Shangguan, are you interested in going to the Hidden Saint Pavilion with me? You want to bring me to see that elder? Shangguan Yunqi's eyes lit up. I just want to see if you can go to the 11th floor with me. If you can, I'd like to meet him. All right then. Shangguan Yunqi nodded slightly. After that, Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi sped up and flew toward the teleportation portal. In a quarter of an hour, Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi arrived in front of the Hidden Saint Pavilion. Just as they were about to enter the Hidden Saint Pavilion, a few figures walked out. When the few figures saw Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi, they were stunned and stood rooted to the ground. Hey, isn't this the leader of the new students, Lin Yi? What's wrong? Feeling the pressure of the competition in 2 days, you came to the Hidden Saint Pavilion to exchange for treasures? Ha ha, now you know how to be nervous. Seeing Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi's anxious and panicky expressions, the older students thought that Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi were worried about the duel 2 days later and immediately laughed out loud. In an instant, Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi's brows furrowed as they impatiently glanced at those people. I was wondering who it was. So it's the one who was called trash and didn't dare to talk back. Lin Yi sneered. He recognized one of them. It was the one who had been called trash by Zhu Mingyou. Hearing this, that person was enraged, but the others laughed out loud. Bastard, stop laughing. In a low voice, the others quickly covered their mouths. Obviously, that person's status was not low. You sharp-tongued brat. I hope you can still laugh the day after tomorrow. I'm afraid you don't have enough points to exchange for treasures here. Do you want me to lend you some? Wang Jiaxing sneered. Every time he saw Lin Yi's indifferent expression, he had the urge to attack him. However, the rules of the academy were very strict, and he could not break them. He could only take advantage of them by arguing. However, if he wanted to go against Lin Yi, Wang Jiaxing had found the wrong person. No need. Lin Yi smiled indifferently. I don't have the habit of borrowing things from my grandson. Although you are very filial, I still can't agree to it. After all, I don't have a grandson as stupid as you. Wang Jiaxing felt his chest being squeezed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was so angry that he felt dizzy, and his mind was in a mess. In an instant, the seniors behind Wang Jiaxing looked at Lin Yi with fear in their eyes. Chapter 496. Keep these points for yourself, grandson. Lin Yi ignored the enraged Wang Jiaxing and stepped into the Hidden Saint Pavilion. Wang Jiaxing clenched his fists but did not dare to make a move. He could only grit his teeth and watch Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi leave. Brother Wang, what should we do? The rest of the people asked. What else can we do? Let's go back and give a saint item to Brother Zhu. Wang Jiaxing cursed. He was too ashamed to stay and left. The Hidden Saint Pavilion was quiet. So many saint-grade treasures, as expected of Cebu Gakuan. Looking around, Shangwan Yunqi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, his face full of shock. Although he knew about the Hidden Saint Pavilion, this was the first time he saw it. I can't redeem them if I don't have enough points. Lin Yi curled his lips and said, Let's go to the top floor first. It won't be too late to come back when we have enough points. Okay. The two nodded and rushed up the stairs. After a while, they reached the 10th floor. Lin Yi followed his memory and rushed to the 11th floor. Soon, a staircase appeared in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. When Shangwan Yunqi said that there were only 10 floors in the Hidden Saint Pavilion, Lin Yi became nervous. We're here. Lin Yi pointed at the staircase and said with a smile, Your information might be outdated. Maybe the 11th floor only appeared a few years ago. What? What 11th floor? Hearing this, Shangwan Yunqi was stunned. He stared blankly at Lin Yi. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and waved his hand in front of Shangwan Yunqi. He asked in surprise, Can't you see? There's a staircase in front of us. A staircase? Shangwan Yunqi blinked his eyes and stared straight ahead. His mouth twitched as he said, Brother Lin, what kind of joke is this? It was clearly a wall. After saying that, Shangwan Yunqi took a step forward and extended his hand forward. He raised his palm and pressed it against the air. It was as if he was being blocked by something. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi's entire body trembled, and he suddenly had a bad premonition. Gulp. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Lin Yi frowned and fell into deep thought. Shangwan Yunqi looked at Lin Yi and saw his serious expression. He immediately understood that Lin Yi wasn't lying to him. His expression changed as he asked, "Brother Lin, you can see the stairs here?" "Yes." Lin Yi nodded slightly. "But I'm curious as to why you see it as a wall." "Damn it, I don't believe it." Suddenly, Lin Yi clenched his teeth and grabbed Shangwan Yunqi's hand. He said in a low voice, "Brother Shangwan, I want to drag you in with me to have a look. Do you dare to do it?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Shangwan Yunqi said seriously. "If we can really enter the so-called 11th level, we must have a look." Hearing this, Lin Yi no longer hesitated. He took a deep breath and immediately headed for the stairs. Bang! However, just as Lin Yi was about to step up the stairs with Shangwan Yunqi, a faint silver light bloomed. The next moment, a surging divine sense exploded and slammed into Shangwan Yunqi's body. Crackle! A bolt of lightning appeared and stabbed into Lin Yi and Shangwan Yunqi's hands. They felt a sharp pain in their wrists and immediately let go of their hands. At the same time, the divine sense was like a giant hammer that slammed into Shangwan Yunqi and sent him flying. Poof! With a crisp sound, Shangwan Yunqi landed on the ground and coughed out a mouthful of blood. All the bones in his body felt like they had fallen apart, and he was powerless to get up. Looking at the empty wall in front of him, his eyes were filled with horror. Lin Yi had already disappeared without a trace. Swoosh! 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 Several figures suddenly appeared beside Shangwan Yunqi. How did this boy trigger the restrictive spell? The moment they saw Shangwan Yunqi's injuries, they were all shocked. Immediately after, they began to treat Shangwan Yunqi. Under their treatment, Shangwan Yunqi recovered quickly. He grabbed their hands and shouted in panic, "Elders, my friend disappeared in front of that wall." He also said that he saw the stairs to the 11th level. "You must go and save him." "What? Someone went to the 11th level? How is that possible? How could someone enter the 11th level without alerting us?" Hearing this, the elders immediately cried out in alarm. Their faces were filled with shock. They did not know what was stored in the 11th level. They had only been told by the elders that they were not allowed to go there. Therefore, they were shocked when they heard that someone had entered the 11th level. Is there really an 11th level? Hearing the elders' exclamations, Shangwan Yunqi heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the news. In that case, Lin Yi would be fine. "No, you must stay here and take care of him. I will go and find the great elder immediately." Phew, someone has entered the 11th level. I must report this. In the 11th level, feeling that there was nothing in his right hand, Lin Yi turned his head to look. His brows immediately furrowed. Cough, cough. The familiar coughing sound rang out once again. However, this time around, the sound was a little cold. "In the future, without my permission, you are not allowed to bring anyone here." When the voice reached his ears, Lin Yi looked up and saw Chun Daoxian cleaning the shelves. There was nothing on the shelves. Lin Yi could not help but wonder what Chun Daoxian was cleaning. He looked so sincere. After a moment of silence, Lin Yi suddenly asked, "Why am I the only one who can see the stairs to the 11th level?" "Because you are a divine sense saint." Chun Daoxian put down the broom and walked to the side of the table to sit down. He sighed and said, "Back when I was injured and came back, the great palace master opened up this floor so that I could recuperate well. He also recorded some of his secret arts here. In the future, he would pass them on to others. In order to prevent others from disturbing me, the great palace master set up a restriction here. Of course, he was afraid that I would be bored, so he opened the restriction a little. Only divine saints can see the stairs and come up to chat with me." Then, Chun Daoxian looked up and said faintly, "Your friend broke through the restriction and will be discovered by the elders. It seems that the elders in charge of guarding the sacred depository pavilion will be here soon. At that time, if he asks you to join the inner yard, do not agree." Why? Hearing this, Lin Yi was shocked and looked at Chun Daoxian in puzzlement. Was it not a good thing to enter the inner yard early? Why would Chun Daoxian not let him in? Could it be that there was a secret behind this? Chapter 497. You'll know in a month's time. Chun Daoxian picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. He murmured, "Ordinary elders don't know about these things. I can't tell you yet. But what I can tell you is that only the outer yard can benefit. If you enter the inner yard, you'll lose a chance to become stronger." Frowning, Lin Yi studied Chun Daoxian carefully. Seeing that he didn't seem to be lying, he couldn't help but hesitate. Whether it was the holy badge, the restriction, or the special 11th floor, they all showed that Chun Daoxian was not ordinary. But should he believe Chun Daoxian? If Chun Daoxian lied to him, then he would lose a great chance to enter the inner yard. After pondering for a moment, Lin Yi suddenly made a decision. He smiled and walked to Chun Daoxuan's table. He sat down cross-legged, picked up the teacup opposite Chun Daoxian, and drank it in one gulp. Interesting. Sensing this, Chun Daoxuan's lips curled up slightly. He suddenly sighed. "You remind me of an old friend. What a pity." At this point, his voice stopped abruptly. Chun Daoxian sighed softly and didn't say anything else. This made Lin Yi raise his eyebrows. But if Chun Daoxian didn't want to continue, there was nothing he could do. Only divine sense saints can come up here. However, I don't want others to come up here casually. Chun Daoxian said indifferently, "In the future, without my permission, even if someone is a divine sense saint, you can't bring them up here. Do you understand?" Nodding slightly, Lin Yi put down the teacup. He suddenly felt a warm current flowing through his body. Surprised, Lin Yi carefully sensed it. The warm current suddenly turned into pure divine sense power and integrated into his body, relaxing every inch of his muscles. In just a short moment, Lin Yi suddenly discovered that his physique had actually become stronger by a few notches. Sensing this, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Chun Daoxian in shock. If the reason for these changes was a cup of tea, then it was simply too heaven-defying. Don't overthink it. This is the divine affinity tea. It can only be used once a year. Chun Daoxian said indifferently, "All right, why did you come looking for me this time? Have you digested all the things I explained to you earlier?" "I'm almost done digesting." Lin Yi spoke with fervor and assurance, asking all the questions he had before. Hearing this, Chun Daoxian was very satisfied and smiled. He was also shocked by Lin Yi's talent. After a while, Lin Yi hesitated and told Chun Daoxian about the bet with the others. In the blood refinement ground, it was difficult to defeat two people who were close to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm without using any formations or supreme sacred weapons. Coincidentally, there was a spiritual sage here who was more powerful than the great sage who was willing to teach him. Lin Yi naturally would not miss this opportunity. With your current spiritual power, it's not a problem to deal with a late-stage saint. But if you want to deal with someone close to the pinnacle of the great sage, it's still difficult. Chun Daoxian pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "There's something you need on the third shelf on the left." "Shelf?" Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but exclaim, "There's nothing on these shelves. How can there be what I need?" "Nothing at all," Chun Daoxian smiled and said, "You can only see them if you use your heart to sense them." Heart. Frowning, Lin Yi got up and walked to the third shelf on the left. He reached out and touched it. There was nothing on it. Lin Yi immediately pondered. "All right, he's a spiritual sage. I'll try using my spiritual power." With a thought, the power of his divine sense emerged and swept across the platform abruptly. Buzz. Suddenly, Lin Yi's mind swelled. Countless information flowed into Lin Yi's mind like a river flowing backward. 10,000 godly art. High-grade saint-rank divine sensibility. When cultivated to the greater success realm, one can create anything in the world with a thought. Its power is comparable to a peerless saint spiritual power. A set of high-grade saint spiritual power was quickly injected into Lin Yi's mind. Not far away, Chun Daoxian nodded slightly and was very satisfied. This time, Chun Daoxian imparted that set of spiritual power to Lin Yi to test Lin Yi's talent. If one wanted to become the great sage and go to the ruins to fight for the third volume of the 3,000 Heavenly Tao, it would be impossible if one was not talented enough. Naturally, Chen Daoxian wanted to test Lin Ye's talent so that he could decide how much to invest in Lin Yi. If he invested too much, it would not be worth it. This time, Lin Yi was able to sense the 10,000 godly art in a short time, which made him very satisfied. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After all, the 10,000 godly art was an upper-grade saint's spiritual power and contained a lot of information. In addition, it also contained Chen Daoxuan's understanding of the 10,000 godly art, which made it even more difficult to digest. Lin Ye's entire body trembled as he silently absorbed and digested the torrent of memories. Swoosh! Suddenly, footsteps sounded from the stairs. Chen Daoxian did not look up. A figure quietly stepped into the 11th floor area. The figure was dressed in a white robe and had a handsome face. He looked like a young man. As soon as he went upstairs, the person scanned the surroundings. When he saw Lin Yi twitching all over, he heaved a long sigh of relief. Obviously, he also saw that Lin Yi was absorbing the inheritance of the cultivation technique. I didn't expect you to be willing to come out. Looking at Chen Daoxian, the white-robed young man sighed and said, "So many years have passed. So many saints' spiritual power have entered here and benefited from it, but none of them caught your attention. Today, I've finally fulfilled one of your wishes." "No, not yet." Chen Daoxian shook his head slightly and said indifferently, "I'm just fated with him. I'm just showing up to teach him a little so that he won't go down the wrong path. As for my inheritance, it's impossible for him to get it." Hearing this, the white-robed young man carefully sized up Lin Yi. He closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. His expression immediately changed. "Ha! You have such high standards." The white-robed young man stared at Lin Yi, and his eyes gradually lit up. "This little guy's talent is so high, but you still don't think highly of him? His path is different from mine." Chen Daoxian waved his hand and said indifferently, "There's nothing here. You can leave now." "No rush, no rush," the white-robed young man said with a grin. "This little guy is a student of the academy. I have to watch over him in case he gets hurt. After all, cultivating divine spiritual power is a very dangerous thing." Flawless white. Chen Daoxian suddenly changed his indifference and said through gritted teeth, "Don't push me too far." "How'd I push you?" Chapter 498. Boom! After absorbing the 10,000 divine art, Lin Ye's body emitted an invisible wave of energy that spread out and swept out. The surging energy almost blew the platform to the ground. Chen Daoxian and Flawless White's robes fluttered wildly in the wind. Slowly opening his eyes, Lin Yi was excited. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Flawless White. Buzz! The moment he saw Flawless White, many scenes appeared in front of Lin Yi, and he couldn't help but be stunned. Something's wrong. Just as he was in a daze, the 3,000 heavenly Tao revolved on its own. Lin Yi suddenly woke up and shook his head violently. He took a few steps back and narrowed his eyes as he stared at Flawless White. Lin Yi was shocked, and his face was especially solemn. He clenched his fists tightly. Lin Yi was sure that Flawless White's strength was not inferior to Murong Ning and Theta Scarabii. He might even be slightly stronger. This shocked Lin Yi. He didn't expect that there were so many experts hidden in Cebu Gakuin. Interesting. Flawless White rubbed his nose and suddenly laughed. A mere 9 tribulation half-true saint can wake up so quickly. It seems like your divine sense is very strong. Definitely not a beginner divine sense saint. Interesting. Speaking of this, Flawless White's eyes flickered, and a sense of appreciation rose in his heart. He wasn't worried that Lin Yi had accepted Chen Daoxuan's inheritance. As long as Lin Yi belonged to Cebu Gakuin, it would be fine. Now that he's safe and sound, Flawless White, you should leave. Chen Daoxian snorted coldly. Hearing this, Lin Yi rolled his eyes, and his mind raced. In that instant, Lin Yi had guessed Flawless White's identity. He was the elder in charge of guarding the Saint Depository Pavilion, and his relationship with Chun Daoxian was completely at odds. However, what shocked Lin Yi was that Flawless White looked like he was in his 20s. He was so young that it was hard to believe. Hee, since he is safe, I will naturally leave. Flawless White glanced at Lin Yi and laughed. Little fellow, cultivate well. I hope that I can see you on the Saint Transforming Board in a year's time. The corners of Flawless White's mouth curled up as he laughed heartily. Then, he turned around and left quickly. Sensing Flawless White's departure, Chun Daoxian couldn't help but be surprised. In the past, every time Flawless White saw someone come here, he would pester them endlessly. He didn't expect Flawless White to leave so easily this time. Something's not right. There must be something wrong. His heart turned cold. In an instant, the aura of the entire 11th floor turned cold. The cold air was so cold that even Lin Yi couldn't withstand it. He immediately shouted, "Elder, I'm still here." Hearing Lin Yi's voice, Chun Daoxian finally reacted and quickly withdrew the cold air. Phew. Letting out a sigh of relief, Lin Yi asked curiously, "That young man is the guardian elder of the Saint Depository Pavilion?" "That's right." Chun Daoxian nodded slightly and sneered. "He's not young at all. When I first joined Cebu Gakuin, he was already an elder." "What?" The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. He was extremely shocked. It seemed that Bai Wuxiao's strength was extremely powerful. Normally, he could not be provoked. The elephant's divine skill was the superpower that I relied on the most. I hope you'll cultivate it well and live up to its reputation. Chun Daoxian waved his hand and said impatiently, "Hurry up and leave. Cultivate the elephant's divine skill well. If you don't leave now, it'll be troublesome if your friend doesn't leave. I'm afraid those elders are going to find trouble with me again." Ahem. Sensing the impatience in Chun Daoxuan's words, Lin Yi smiled awkwardly. He cupped his fists in thanks and turned to leave. This time, he was able to obtain the elephant's divine skill and drink a cup of divine fate tea. He had gained a lot, and it was time for him to leave. Stepping into the stairs, Lin Yi quickly appeared on the 10th floor. "Brother Lin, you're finally back." A familiar voice sounded. Lin Yi raised his head and looked over. To his surprise, he discovered that there were actually several elders present on the originally empty 10th floor. Seeing Lin Yi come down, the elders curiously looked behind Lin Yi. However, in their line of sight, there was nothing behind Lin Yi except for a wall. "Elders." Lin Yi bowed slightly. "It's good that you're back." Seeing that they couldn't see anything, the elders coughed and left quickly, too embarrassed to ask more questions. Suddenly, only Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi were left in this space. "I didn't expect there to be an 11th floor here." Shangguan Yunqi sighed and said, "I heard that the elder guarding the sacred depository has gone up. I'm so envious of you. You've met 2 elders with real power so quickly." "Don't mention it," Lin Yi said helplessly. "The elder guarding the sacred depository is not on good terms with the elder guarding the 11th floor. Moreover, that elder thinks I'm Chun Daoxuan's man. I'm afraid he'll make things difficult for me in the future." The corner of Shangguan Yunqi's mouth twitched as he looked at Lin Yi in surprise. "Let's not talk about this. Let's go back quickly," Lin Yi said in a low voice. "We seem to have made a big deal out of this." Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi didn't dare to stay any longer. He didn't even look at the sacred depository and directly left. After leaving the sacred depository, Shangguan Yunqi's injuries hadn't fully recovered. After bidding farewell to Lin Yi, he went back to recuperate. Lin Yi returned to the courtyard. When Lin Yi returned, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu had already returned. "Young master, you're back." Silent Soul greeted Lin Yi and reported the Heavenly Rapier clan's matters in detail. With Tang Linkong's persuasion and the reputation of Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others, many of the new disciples who followed them didn't hesitate and chose to join the Heavenly Rapier clan. As a result, the number of people in the Heavenly Rapier clan exceeded Tang Linkong's expectations. It had reached more than 5,000 people. This made Tang Linkong shocked. If this was the case, apart from the fact that their cultivation was lower, in terms of numbers, they could crush all the other forces in the outer courtyard. Of course, if they really fought, their strength was still not as good as the other forces. The clan master was Lin Yi. Sun Wuyu, Muyi, Yin Shihao, and the others divided the other positions and divided them into many halls. Each hall had its own mission. At this time, Muyi, Yin Shihao, and the others' abilities were revealed. There was no pressure at all. In just a short 2 hours, they had stabilized the situation. TSK, I didn't expect Muyi, Yin Shihao, and the others to be so capable. Lin Yi was quite surprised. It seemed that his hands-off work was very successful. Young master, now that the Heavenly Rapier clan has been established, we will all cheer for you and show our strength the day after tomorrow. Chapter 499. The badge represented a force, and only Lin Yi could design it on behalf of the Sky Rapier sect. After a moment of melancholy, Lin Yi decided to use the Sky Sword as the prototype for the Force badge and drew it. Silent Soul drew another Sky Sword, crossed the two swords, and dyed them blood red, looking very domineering. This is even more domineering. Young master, is it okay? Silent Soul's eyes flashed as he looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi nodded slightly and agreed. It was just a badge, not important. Then I'll go discuss it with Yin Shihao and the rest. All right, young master. Qing Yu hasn't joined us yet, so I'll leave her to you. She's not weak. If you can get her to join us, she and Shangwan Yunqi can take care of things when you're not around. Sticking out their tongues, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu left in a hurry. Rubbing his chin, Lin Yi suppressed the idea of getting Qing Yu to join them. Qing Yu was too mysterious, and her divine sense technique felt familiar to Lin Yi, so he didn't want to get too close to her. The battle is the day after tomorrow. I'll use this time to cultivate the elephant divine skill. Back in his room, Lin Yi activated the spirit gathering array and entered the ninefold space. The elephant divine skill was an upper-grade sage superpower, and the conditions to cultivate it were extremely harsh. Fortunately, Lin Yi had also obtained Chun Daoxuan's comprehension of the 10,000 elephant divine skill. This time, it was as if he was recultivating it. It was very easy. In just 3 days, he had successfully comprehended it. Boom, boom, boom. His divine sense suddenly surged, turning into a flying dragon, a goshawk, a giant bear, and constantly changing forms. In just a moment, it had transformed into hundreds, close to 1,000 forms. At this moment, even though Lin Ye's divine sense had been greatly improved, he still felt a heart-wrenching pain. To cultivate the elephant divine skill, an ordinary person would need to have a divine sense of at least level 60. After Chen Daoxian found out that Lin Yi cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Daos, he did not tell Lin Yi about this. He even deleted all the memories related to this. Therefore, when Lin Yi successfully cultivated the technique, Lin Ye's spiritual force could no longer withstand it. Lin Yi did not dare to delay, as he felt the pain surging into his heart like a tidal wave. He hurriedly circulated the 3,000 heavenly Daos to calm his spiritual force. Buzz! The 3,000 heavenly Daos circulated, and the gentle energy was like water, cleansing Lin Ye's soul. Even the pain he felt was alleviated. Lin Ye's divine sense gradually became more tenacious as it continued to transform into various forms. Lin Yi calmed down and focused on maintaining his divine sense. After a quarter of an hour, the transformation of the divine sense came to an abrupt end, and the pain also completely disappeared. The elephant divine skill could be said to be a kind of spiritual infusion ability. It could inject all the existences in the myriad worlds into the divine sense. Only then could one reach the realm of transforming all things with a thought. Therefore, the process of injecting spiritual force was also accompanied by tremendous pain. Ordinary people without the strength of level 60 divine sense could not comprehend it at all. If not for Lin Yi cultivating the 3,000 heavenly Daos, it would have been very difficult to resolve the crisis this time. After injecting spiritual force, Lin Yi's cultivation was on the right track. He started cultivating the first level of the elephant divine skill. Because Chun Daoxuan's comprehension was also attracted by Lin Yi, the cultivation of the elephant divine skill was rather easy for Lin Yi. Apart from the pain of injecting spiritual force, the following cultivation went smoothly. In just a short 6 months, he cultivated the elephant divine skill to the 5th level, reaching the realm of being able to transform all beasts in the world. Just as he was about to continue cultivating, Lin Yi's cultivation was interrupted by someone. Ending cultivation, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest were all outside the door. Even Qing Wei was there too. Suddenly seeing Qing Wei, Lin Yi was quite surprised. TSK, we're doing our best for the Heavenly Rapier sect, but you're still hiding here to cultivate. Shangguan Yunqi curled his lips, looking at Lin Yi with eyes full of smiles. Aren't I doing this for everyone? If we don't defeat those 2 guys, our troubles in the future will be endless. Lin Yi smiled. I'll have to trouble you guys for these few days. You should thank her for this. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest revealed a strange smile and looked at Qing Wei. Oh, raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi looked at Silent Soul. Silent Soul smiled. It's all thanks to Sister Qing Wei. Originally, some of the new students who prefer to go alone were still watching, but once Sister Qing Wei took action, many people were pulled over. Moreover, the Heavenly Rapier sect is very active now, and has already established a perfect system of rules and regulations. If it wasn't for Sister Qing Wei, it would be very difficult to achieve this. Hearing this, Lin Yi was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Qing Wei to have such great charm. Actually, in terms of appearance, Silent Soul wasn't any worse than Qing Wei. But in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only beauty was useless. After all, Qing Wei was the strongest among the new students other than Lin Yi. Adding on her appearance, it was expected that she would have such charm. Thank you, Miss Qing Wei. Lin Yi smiled. She helped him, so he couldn't be cold to her. No need to thank me. This is for everyone's sake. Qing Wei said indifferently, if you have the ability to prevent everyone from being bullied, then that's great. Ha ha ha. Since everyone is willing to believe in me, I definitely won't disappoint everyone. With a smirk, Lin Yi was suddenly overwhelmed with emotions. It wasn't difficult for him to increase his strength and make a name for himself in Cebu Gakuen. If he could make a name for himself with all the new students, then that would be truly amazing. Moreover, manpower was sometimes limited. Sometimes having so many new students was also a kind of help to him. Brother Lin, now you're in the limelight in the outer court. Your bet with Du Yuetian and Zhu Mingyong has already shocked the entire outer court. Shangguan Yunqi stepped forward and patted Lin Yi's shoulder. He said in a deep voice, do your best this time. If you can defeat them in front of all the seniors, then our Heavenly Rapier sect and the new students will have a much better life in the future. Shocked the entire outer court, Lin Yi's mouth twitched. He said doubtfully, those seniors don't have anything to do? It's just 2 bets? Is there a need for this? For them it's not just 2 bets. Tang Linkong said with a smile, this time, our new students won the hunting war, which made them lose face. It said that the top 10 on the Transforming Saint board are all paying attention to you. The top 10 on the Transforming Saint board? Lin Yi shook his head and said with a smile, don't tell me they'll jump out after I defeat Zhu Mingyong. It doesn't matter, no matter who comes. Wanting to bully us new students is purely a fool's dream. Since you're in the outer court, then use your strength to speak. As for face, it's earned by yourself, not given by others. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.